Recording in progress.
I just rode here.
I just did the same thing. Yeah. It's cold.
You on a bike?
No. I was outside.
Mr. Travis, how are you?
Mr. Travis, is that what he goes by?
That's pretty much
Mr.
right.
Travis.
I prefer Becky.
I like that jacket.
Whatever they
Maybe
call
that,
me.
yeah, that's like years ago. That's a nice choice for.
Is that your choice?
I've made some bad ones.
Jackets
I have a
particularly?
collection of a handful of Provo City Council clothing items that I'm just like, whoa. That one, yeah.
You have to ask for references.
My last one that I brought home, my wife said, that looks like a bowling shirt. You are never wearing it.
Unless we start a bowling team.
Unless we start a bowling team.
Look a little different on the 6'5".
It looked like
Ready? Are we recording? Call this meeting to order. It's the Provo Municipal Council Work Session Agenda 103 Tuesday, January 9th, 2024. And we will let all the elected, we'll announce all the elected officials. Do a roll call here, starting with George.
Hanley?
Becky Boston.
Travis Hoban.
Patrice McKay.
Rachel Whipple.
Gary Garrett.
And Craig Christensen.
The mayor is excused. Although this is a public meeting, only the presenters and those invited by the council may speak or ask questions, unless otherwise invited by the chair. Please wait to speak until called upon by council chair. When speaking, please be sure to use a microphone so the record is clear and those attending virtually can hear you. Please also be sure to limit side conversations as we interfere with the audio recording. If you need to have a side conversation, please step out of the work meeting room. It is proposed that we approve the following minutes: December 12th, 2023 work meeting. Are there any objections or requested changes? Seeing no objection, I declare the minutes approved by unanimous consent. We are going to continue discussion regarding the Parkway Village Tax Increment Finance Reimbursement Agreement and also a discussion regarding the shops at Riverwoods Sales Tax Increment Fund Agreement. We will start with a discussion and training regarding the council issue tracker, and this will be presented to us by Michael Sanders, our policy analyst.
Okay, good afternoon, council. So just so you guys know, my skills are not in graphic design, and we were pretty busy these past couple of weeks, so this presentation is going to be pretty plain. Anyways, it's been about 1 year since, rather than meeting as committees on issues, the council opted to consider items as a committee of the whole. And last year, council staff devised a way in order to track items and prepare presentations for the council consideration, known as the council issue tracker. And over the past year, we learned a lot and identified some improvements to the system, which we'll describe during this presentation. This presentation will also serve as a kind of like a report on the council office's legislative support activities and training on the updated issue tracker system. Okay, so last year the council heard 200 items during work meetings and 173 items during the night meetings, and the total time amounted to approximately 5 days worth of hours, which is the equivalent of watching Cecil DeMille's 10 Commandments 32 times in a row. And we're really thankful to all the collaboration we had with the administrative staff who helped make these meetings happen. So over the course of the year, the council office tracked 46 different issue tracker requests, received both through the official portal and through majority council motions. And the list represents issue tracker items. This list represents tracker items that were completed or closed. And just to note, not all of these requests actually came to a work meeting. If it didn't come to a work meeting, that was either passed on to the administration, discussed, resolved with council leadership, written up and sent out as just an informational memo, or was withdrawn by the issue sponsor. So we did have a variety of presentations from the issue tracker to actually make it to the work meeting for discussion, and in my opinion, I think that these represented some of the best discussions that the council had during the year, because it resulted in some great dialogue and some good policies. And these issues gave staff the opportunity to research in many different areas across several different subjects. So this list on the screen are some issue tracker items from last year, which are still in progress. And just to note, if you have submitted some this year, they're not reflected on this slide. So I'm just going to go through a quick update on this list here. So the ADU cleanup ordinance was continued from the December 12th night meeting and is on the agenda for tonight. The water conservation artificial turf language was requested during the May 16th work meeting and was heard by the Planning Commission on September 27th, but it was continued and it has yet to be rescheduled. And the water conservation commercial property language was requested during the May 2nd work meeting. And according to development services staff, meetings with administrative staff have been difficult to coordinate. And for this reason, recommendations from the administration have yet to come. So council can either wait for recommendations from the administration or instigate revisions of their own if they see fit. So regarding the RDL pricing amendments, customer service and development services staff have been looking diligently into this issue, and a memo from administrative staff is forthcoming, which will describe their findings, and a work meeting presentation will follow when a more fleshed out plan and recommendation is ready to be proposed. For the short-term rental licenses, council staff has been coordinating with customer service and development services staff, and the proposal is currently scheduled to come to the next work meeting. Tiered water rate revisions, they were discussed during the August 1st and September 5th work meetings, and after reviewing the goals from the 2020 study, council staff forwarded the updated goals to public works staff to be included in a new study, which study is forthcoming. And the zoning update, RFP is currently drafted by our office and is undergoing review in the legal office. The administrative reports update is up for consideration during the next evening meeting, and an issue tracker item about noise cameras is currently under research and review by the council staff. So just throughout the year, the council policy analysts have also provided legislative support through tracking bills at the state legislature and review and analysis of the budget process and review of the various general plan amendments that we had throughout the year. So sometimes working in the council office feels like you're Lewis and Clark, kind of lost in the wilderness, and the issue tracker has really become our wayfinder, or like our Sacred Way Out, right? It helps us get from point A to point B on council requests and helps the council accomplish their goals. It enables both the staff and council to stay up to date and focused on various requests coming throughout the year. And by submitting a request to the issue tracker portal, it really helps us make sure that we're on track and help you guys complete your goals. And we understand that it may seem cumbersome or redundant to officially submit your requests through the online portal, but it really does help us stay organized. So just thank you for all that you guys did last year by submitting those online. So now we're just going to go through a quick the updated issue tracker survey now. So whenever you do have a request of council staff, you'll all be emailed a link that you guys can bookmark. And when you click on your link, you'll come to these simple directions right here. You can read those whenever you have a request. After you're done reading those, you just first select your own last name as the sponsor and then indicate who else is co-sponsoring the item. And there's no limit on how many councilors can co-sponsor an item. And being a co-sponsor does not necessarily indicate support for or against a proposal or item, but rather indicates that you're willing to hear it and have staff research it. And then finally, just give it a short title. You'll then see this really long question, which in essence is asking if your request has anything to do with the powers of the municipal council as set forth in city or state code, which involves passing ordinances and resolutions, appropriating funds, or reviewing municipal administration. And just to note, we also included a provision to allow councilors to request presentations from outside entities if the need or desire arises. If you answer yes to this question, you'll then be asked what your desired outcome of your request is.
If you answer no?
We will get to that in a future slide. Good question. If you answer yes, you'll
Goes to spam.
It'll go to the spam folder. So does your request want to adopt new or amend Provo City Code? Do you want to pass a resolution stating the council's wishes or opinion on the subject? Do you want to give money to a department, program, or project, or research into the policies of the administration? Or do you want a presentation from the outside entity? And just to note, you can, if your request involves more than one of these items, you can click as many as you need. And then finally, just give a brief summary of the issue and any other context that will be helpful to staff as they research the item. And once we receive the item, a member of staff will reach out to you regarding what we're determining issue sponsor meeting, which we'll go over later in the presentation what exactly that entails. So this slide is the same from a few slides ago, only instead of answering yes, we're answering no. So if your request has nothing to do with passing an ordinance or resolution appropriating funds, reviewing the administration, or hearing a presentation from an outside entity, and that means that your request is administrative in nature. But a member of staff will still reach out to you regarding issue sponsor meeting and the path forward and what options you have regarding your question. That answer your question, Cass? All right. Okay, so taken as a whole, the process has 5 steps. The counselor will make the request. Then staff will reach out for the issue sponsor meeting. So this is a new process that we're introducing this year because we felt that last year sometimes there was a gap between the request that the counselor originally made and the final presentation. So this meeting will kind of allow the sponsor and the staff to get together to talk and be able to get on the same page before moving forward with research. So kind of the goal of the issue sponsor meeting is kind of threefold. It's one, we want to be able to define the problem and the issue definition. We want to get a good solid timeline for the project, and also we want to be able to determine what sort of deliverables we need to determine success, right? And then after that meeting, the council staff will move forward with research and analysis and if needed policy proposals. And then if necessary, a work meeting presentation will be scheduled where the council as a whole will hear the issue. And then for the issue to continue to move forward, majority approval needs to be made by the council or else the issue will die. And that work meeting presentation is the opportunity for the council to really weigh in on the proposals and have the discussion and dialogue with each other and with the administration on really what we want to do to really form and massage the policies. Because like when the policies come to the work meeting, and it doesn't mean that it's finished, it can really be refined by the council as they see fit. But that's what the work meeting time is really for. And then if the issue does result in a new ordinance change or new policy, then the council office will just continue to monitor and track that for further refinement. So thanks again for everything you guys do. It's really been a pleasure working with you over this past year. I'm excited for the new counselors coming on. I'm excited to see what kind of requests come in this year and what we can accomplish together. So if you have any questions, now is the time.
Any questions for Michael?
I'm sure the questions will come when we get into it.
Yeah. Well, I think this has been fantastic. I've really enjoyed the tracker, so thank you so much. I know you fully worked hard on this, and it's been effective.
Yeah, it would be nice if maybe sponsors and co-sponsors could get a little email update, like at the 1 or 3 month mark, something like that, because sometimes we put in things at kind of a lower priority, and then we can be like, oh yeah, they still remember it.
Noted.
Okay, it just, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Sometimes things sit, rightly so.
I was going to echo that. And then one other thing that Craig and I were talking about in terms of like, if we wanted to, I mean, one thing that maybe got lost or needed additional strategy to compensate for when we created the committees was that longer term conversation about something that gets in-depth education. But I wonder if maybe we just haven't used this as a method for doing that. So I assume it's okay, for example, if we said, you know, we wanted to do, I mean, I was describing to Craig that we had done a more in-depth discussion over the last year about homelessness and got a variety of different agencies coming and talk to us. So I think that might be one way to do that, but I don't know. I assume that would be like an issue tracker thing. I would say,
Yeah, I want
know,
this expert person to come in.
yeah,
and-
I mean, it ends up being a pretty big decision though. It's a big ask if we said we want to dedicate, you know, an hour of our work session for the next 6 months on, you know, some big topic. But there may be justifications for something that's a little more in depth, that we feel like we just need to wrap our heads around it. And I felt those presentations on homelessness were incredibly helpful and educational. And that, I assume, was that an issue tracker?
Yeah, it kind of became,
It was just-
that, so.
Okay. Anyway, I don't know if that addresses, Craig had just wondered, you know, how are we gonna get really good information on something that's really complicated if it's just a one-time thing, and it doesn't have to be, it could be, you know.
And the other question was just offline. I'd love to know how to research those past issues. I'm sure they're available. I don't know.
Yeah, if you have any questions about anything that was on the list of past things, just that we went over last year, just shoot me an email and I can send you the materials or summary, or we can hop on a phone call or something like that.
That used to be one of Elizabeth's many areas of expertise. She could do it in seconds, but you know, hopefully, and I'm sure you guys can, but hopefully with a new office manager at some point, that'll be a little easier to do. But that's one thing I always relied on her for. It's like, when was that discussion we had back in April of 2000, whatever? She would just find it and send it. So
Michael's done a great job sending it to me where I have all the links to watch or listen and the summary, like he puts it all in one email.
Michael, maybe for now, send us that page of your presentation that has last year's issues, and then we can shoot you back a text if there's any that we want.
All right, yeah, we'll do.
Anything else? All right, thanks so much,
All
Michael.
right, thank you.
Next, we're going to have a discussion regarding council assignments to committees, boards, and commissions. And this will be presented by Justin Harrison, the council executive director.
All right, good afternoon, council members. So, I'm sure many of you have painstakingly poured over this list and are just anxious to be on certain boards, committees, or commissions. So just a little history. As far as council office knowledge, this has been a yearly update that the council has gone through in their first meeting of the year. Just to really have a discussion about what committees they would like to be part of, what they've done in the past, bring up any topics that may have been discussed. We talked a little bit at the last work meeting about regularly updating the council as a whole on those assignments and what's going on. I'll just give a quick shout out to Councilor Hanley, who had worked with the, I'm gonna forget the name. Is it the South County Waste Management?
close. Southern Utah Valley Solid
Southern
Waste
Utah.
District.
Oh my goodness, I'm never gonna remember that. So we're gonna set up a tour. He'd let the council know about their new transfer station. So just things that are of interest to the council that your constituents may be interested in. We know that you all can't be everywhere all the time, and so dividing and conquering and kind of building out these assignments allows the council to be involved in these regional or citywide issues, but not have to be there as a collective body. So I don't have much other than that. I was really hoping for some discussion. There are a few council members that have reached out about specific committees, boards, or commissions, see what they do, what all it entails. If there are any questions, I'm happy to take those, but we've got the list up on the board. We can scroll through, and really just looking for some discussion.
Councilor Bobby.
So first of all, as far as sharing what's on those committees, what if we just submitted, I know like some of them like TMAC, they already take notes for you, right? What if we just submitted either the notes that we take or the notes that they take in these different committees, and then you can just disperse those out to the council members instead of having to that an
Yeah, no,
acceptable
that's
idea?
something staff would be happy to do is provide, copies of minutes for, those different bodies so that the council's aware of what's going on.
Yeah, she makes a good point that a lot of the notes are already taken, right? I know the Provo Housing Authority has minutes taken. So that would be great to get those and just distribute them.
Yeah, and as we distribute those, say the counselor assigned to this is Rachel. So if you've got more questions about this meeting and after you read these notes, talk to her.
Yeah, why don't we just go through the list, starting, I guess, with the audit committee.
Just back to that last issue though, I'm a little worried about getting more emails than I can possibly track. So I don't know if it's a one-time or, regular thing that has all of them on one rather than multiple emails. I don't know if it comes with leadership notes or something, but.
Yeah, whatever the preference is, we can
I mean,
embed.
my meetings are only every 2 months. Provo City Housing Authority is once a month.
We incorporate it with Rachel's email that has the news in Provo and upcoming events. If it were a link inserted with that or.
I've sort of operated with the assumption that most of what happens on my committee is really boring and probably not of interest to people until I find something that is, and then, but I don't always remember to think to myself, oh, this is something that I, should share, but anyway.
But I think what may be important to you or maybe unimportant to you, maybe
Right.
important to me or unimportant to me. And so if the notes or the minutes are distributed to council members, then it's on the individual council members to go ahead
To
and
look
read
at it,
those and decide what's important to them and what's not.
The only other thing I would note is the only limit I would hope you would set is to not have more than 3 members on each of these committees or to have them attend. They'll just create a difficult open meeting situation for any of these boards and commissions. So just know you're always welcome to attend, always welcome to participate, and staff can absolutely will work on a regular way of getting those minutes out for the different committees, if it's through those weekly emails from Rachel and what's going on in the chair notes or in the leadership notes, or both. We'll have a section dedicated to that. Yeah, I guess any questions on specific committees? There's regular meeting times for most of these.
I have one. The CDVG committees, so far as I know, have never met. Right, because I've been on this assignment for a few years. The schedule was TBD and never was D. So do those things even exist still?
Yeah.
As far as I know,
Has yours met, Travis?
No, I don't get the any invites.
Yeah, all that we know is they do those committee meetings with citizens and other people, and we were allowed to attend. Like, those are the only ones I
Yeah,
see.
and George and I went to the one where they were weighing the different nonprofits to give money to them, but I don't think that's the same as what these committees are supposed to be. But I don't know.
Yeah, I thought it was really useful.
It was good to go to.
For us to go to that, but, and I think that the issue was, back several years ago, is that we would get very cryptic information. Well, we'd get essentially no information about the decision-making process that had gone into the recommendations they were making. We just got the recommendations and we would just say, okay, but then we never had the confidence that we knew what were the nature of the deliberations. And Melissa's done so much better with that, but it was also really helpful to actually watch the deliberations and be a part of it a little bit. Maybe we weren't voting members or anything. We just kind of watched and asked questions.
He's back there, maybe responding.
I don't know if this is working or not. I'm not sure what the purpose of those committees was. I know that some of that stuff had been set up before Melissa took over, and we're trying to be better, like you said, about communicating. I'll find out from her if those committees are an ongoing federal requirement that we should have, and if they are, we'll find a way to include you and see how you want to participate. If you want an active committee member or what, but I'll follow up.
Yeah, if not, my personal preference would be if she could just let us know when they have those meetings where they're making those deliberations and invite at least 2 of us, or I guess maximum 3 of us if we wanted to go.
Okay.
Yeah, it would just be an open invitation to the council. I and first 3 who RSVP are in.
Yeah, because what I remember is that we weren't allowed to vote or if we weren't allowed to do anything on it, just listen.
Well, and I would say it's probably good, even if there's only 1 or 2 of you there, if you do just listen, because it's kind of like if you were to go to planning commission and stand up and start speaking, right? You could potentially exercise influence over the committee, even though you are a single counselor and not really acting for the body. So you could show up to one of these meetings and start expressing your opinion and sway the view, the recommendation of the commission in a way that actually doesn't reflect potentially the entire rest of the council.
I tried, it didn't work.
So is that what we're supposed to do on these committees then, is just sit there and watch and not participate? Or?
Well, these
Less true
specific
than the
ones.
Are we looking for ideas or what?
I think we should just
I thought
start
we were
it.
gonna start
Why don't we
at
just
the
start an audit and go down? Let's talk about each one individually.
Well, how many openings are there overall right now?
Well, people may want to switch too, so there could be more openings than what.
Yeah, I'm just curious.
So currently, there are 7 vacancies.
There's 8. There's 1 down at the bottom.
Yeah.
The ULCT.
Yes.
And that was if there would be no changes to the current membership of Southern Riverwoods.
All right, each new council member take 3, we're good.
Okay, so the audit committee, why don't you explain what that is?
Yeah, so the audit committee, and actually, we'll talk about this, actually the next agenda item. So current committee members, include Councilor Hogan, former council member Shipley was a member. I think we have,
And he will still be a member in
I
this,
think we have shamed him into joining as a member
as
of
a
the
citizen.
public. And he'll be a great asset. Currently, there's also another public member, Rick Anderson, who has been on the committee for a number of years and has been a great asset as well, has former banker and financial background.
One thing I would say is it's probably more than 2-3 times a year. Now, it depends. Because I think last year we took, well, essentially we kind of pick one thing each year to kind of say, all right, we're going to drill further into this and we want an outside entity auditing this piece. And so that probably takes 3 or 4 meetings itself. The actual committee, just in general, meeting kind of 2 to 3 times a year outside of that. But that specific audit kind of does. But these meetings are typically first thing in the morning and they're, an hour and we're done. It's pretty, even though there are a few more, it's not like it's a real heavy load. There's not a lot for council members to do outside of the meetings. How about that? Because the auditors are doing the work. So it's kind of mostly the work is just the meeting itself. And really we're just there to make sure to try to be just to make sure that the auditors are kind of on track and
Justin,
The party.
I'm happy to be involved with the audit.
Hey, Gary Garrett, audit committee. We love it.
Travis, do you want to stay on that one?
I can stay on for continuity's sake. I think that might be helpful. But also Shipley's on there too. So if somebody were just really itching to get on the audit committee, I'm fine stepping back. But it doesn't seem like anybody is, so I'll stay on. That's fine.
So is Dave-
never.
Yeah.
Is Dave going to stay on?
As a
citizen.
citizen, got it.
All right, library board.
This is library board.
Can anybody has anyone here been on the library board that they can explain that? I haven't.
No, the last member was Councilor Ellsworth, and prior to Councilor Ellsworth was Councilor Shipley, so.
Now, the library board's a little bit weird. Remember that the way that this works is this is actually a mayoral appointment with the advice and consent of the council.
Oh.
So this would be a councilor expressing interest
Yeah,
to the mayor to be on the library board. It's actually the mayor's call who gets appointed.
well, let's express our interest, whoever does want to do
The
it.
council will still need to give their advice and consent.
Right.
This is not a good time for me, so I can't do that one. Anyone interested in that one?
Who likes books?
I can't do that time.
But that
I've got
time is
class.
horrible.
I think I could do that time. That's later than I'd have any court hearings, so.
Well, I think it's better than I can't.
I was looking through my calendar. I will say that my neighbor is the chair of the board, or the whatever it is, so I have a pretty good sense of what's going on already. So if we wanted to have more people on the council to have that information, it should not be me. But if no one else is available, it can be me.
I think you're in.
So,
We'll see if the mayor approves of that.
agrees, yeah.
She may just say, no, it's definitely not Rachel, it's going to be George, I don't care about a schedule.
The Provo Housing Authority, again, is another mayoral appointment. That's for 3 years. So I've done 1 year. I really enjoy it. And they do have minutes that are taken. So those could easily be gathered by Justin and sent out to all of us.
Yeah.
Those happen once a month.
I really love the idea of including the minutes with one of our other update emails that we already have.
Sure.
Next are a few city advisory boards with a history of council liaison. So they include the Agricultural Commission. So this was previously Councilor Shipley.
I could do that one.
I was gonna say that's one where I have a lot of, similar to what Rachel was saying, I tend to be in contact with that, but anyway, so I'm happy to have someone else get involved as well.
All right, next is the airport board. This was a seat that previously Councilor Fillmore.
That's one I'd be interested in.
Anybody else interested too? Or is it just first dibs?
Up to 3 can do it.
I'm interested, but I'm hesitant to step forward with that because we do have a Provo Bay resident on there. And so I would just rather have them get the perspectives of the west side and we have to overshadow that. I'm happy with just reading notes or showing up from time to time if there's something I would just.
Councilor McKay, you had expressed interest in coming off of the Arts Council.
Do you know what though? I was gonna stay on the Parks and Rec, but the Parks and Rec conflicts with TMAC, which I wanna do. So
Okay.
I probably gonna have to come off Parks and Rec, which means I'll stay on Arts Council,
Okay.
but other people can join me.
Any takers?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a challenging, no, actually, it's not just challenging. I have class at 12:30 on Wednesday. I would love to be kept abreast of what's going on, but I don't think I can't make it.
They're another one that they do take minutes.
Yeah, and I had gone to those meetings for like the first year, but then my calendar got too full, so I couldn't make it anymore, which made me sad.
Energy board is one I'm interested, but it's also one I can't do for my schedule. I didn't notice that before.
I'm interested.
Yeah, I'm interested in energy board as well.
The 2 of us can do that.
Do we usually have 2 or just 1? Or it doesn't matter?
I don't think it matters. We get to 3.
Used to, George Stewart and Gary Winderton both attended for years, so I know that I think they're kind of used to having at least 2.
Gary still does.
Is he on the board?
does.
He's on the board now.
Yeah.
But he went on as a counselor as well.
If you can have 3, I'd be interested to be on that one too.
Oof.
Well, they already provides dinner, so.
Too late. Too late.
I'll just go for dinner.
Yeah, I can make it by 5. That's probably when they start eating.
Dinner on
I'm interested in TMAC.
Yeah, me too.
Cheers. you're welcome to, I'm just like.
Yeah, I'm gonna go on Parks and Rec, which is the best board ever.
Okay, so do we need to say Parks and Rec has a vacancy? then?
Yeah.
We need to fill that.
Yeah.
It's the same time.
I'm happy to take that one, Justin, Parks and Rec.
You're gonna be there working out already, so.
Do you work out at noon?
He's a gym rat.
Just running.
Just
Yes, to
running.
qualify it.
He's gonna do the temple to temple.
Any other interest in Parks and Rec?
Well, I guess this is a good, are there any boards that people need to come off of, like Catrice was saying?
We'll
So
go
are
through
there
them.
any others?
We'll just use
Okay.
it.
I will say the sustainability one, the time has changed. So if that 7:15 was
What is it?
scaring you, it's now 7:30.
Oh.
But it's still just a horrible time. It's not even possible.
I just look at their notes.
Yeah, Janelle takes pretty extensive notes.
So, yeah, you changed it, okay. You good for that still?
I can. I've been with that committee for years,
You've done-
years.
You were on before you're on the council, right?
Yeah,
That was my first city committee ever,
Really?
in 2010, or 2011, somewhere in there. So I created.
So we'll get some updates from Development Services, from.
Then
Melissa,
readdress
And
this.
then readdress.
Yeah.
Anything
Yeah.
here.
Now, the Downtown Inc. time has also changed, isn't it 10:30?
it is. Or 10 a.m.
Okay.
And that one, I'm happy to not be the primary person assigned to that. I still intend to attend, but there have been a few in the last little bit where I've had to do it remotely because I've got other work stuff.
That's one that I would be interested in, is downtown.
I think mine is by appointment. And I think I just renewed my term, but I don't actually know how long the term is. It's pretty long.
Like the name.
So if someone really wants to do it, they're welcome to bump me out, but I think I'm kind of locked in for a while.
George, could you tell us what
You
time?
have to just keep running for elections, you're not allowed to have that.
What's that?
Could you tell us what time it's at so we have
It's
it on? the record?
every, it's Wednesdays at 5:15. Maybe it's sometimes 5, yeah. It's not third Wednesday, it's every other month. So it's the third Wednesday, oh,
Yeah.
sorry, it says that, every other month, yeah. And it's in Springville, that's also,
That is an important
the
thing
main,
to note.
yeah, the reason they start at 5:15 is because I have class until 4:45.
Do you bike there or do you drive?
I have, yeah, but now that my class ends 30 minutes, it takes me about 25 minutes by bike. So it cuts it too close. My battery can get me there pretty fast.
Metropolitan Water Board, I will note that there are also a number of openings on this board. For public members, there will be a notice that will go out shortly, and that the council will appoint these members. So currently, Councilor Whipple serves on this board. It's thrilling, isn't it?
Yes, yes, it is. If any of you want to talk to me about water issues, I'm delighted to talk your ear off. It's so much fun. But it's fun if you care about water issues. So, I don't know, do you care? Of course. Yeah, we'll have lunch.
The time hasn't changed on this, has it?
No, it's quarterly at noon on a Monday. I've got them in my calendar already. Let's see. So March 11th is the next one. So I guess that's a second Monday. Anyway. But I'm not, I mean, don't hold me to the second Monday, but that's what that next one.
Okay.
Like to hope they're consistent.
Yeah. They're good about giving a reminder the week before. Like, oh yeah, that's right.
All right, so the next one is ULCT, and that is for a period of the year, really during the legislative session, where you do a Zoom call, or you can go in person up to the Capitol. I usually do the Zoom call, and you get updates about what's happening with the legislative session, and because ULCT is basically a lobbyist for cities and towns, right, to the legislatures, that they ask for some input. So we do have 3 voting seats. The mayor is a vote, and then 2 council people are votes. So you want to be able to be active on that call where you can do the Slido that they do, or you're in person voting. But they do want you to actively vote. That helps administration, because it just is, more advocacy for our city. There's a few odd times outside the legislative session too, but it's mostly the legislative session. It's every week on Monday at noon.
Wish I could. But
Yeah, I'd like to, but I have a standing meeting at that exact time. I can't.
I think this is a pretty important, it's important that we have eyes on what the legislature is doing, and it's a very helpful organization.
And it is interesting it's definitely helps me keep up to date on state stuff that, I wouldn't be as up to date if I didn't do these meetings.
I can do it.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you all the newbies jumping in and rolling up the sleeves.
And so on that, just to note on ULCT, so there are currently 4 voting seats that the city has.
Oh, does Isaac vote too?
Yeah, so one staff member can be appointed, that's currently Isaac, but the mayor is a board member, she's president of the league this year. So we have 4.
Oh, that's
We
awesome.
can fill that vacancy.
I do think you have to update them that
Yes.
Gary is a voting member.
Yep, we'll let them know.
Okay.
We can have an alternate as well.
We can't,
What does that mean? Like,
just.
if
Gary
Chris
will
ever
do
doesn't
so.
go to a
Yeah.
I'll
meeting,
do
then,
I'll do the alternate.
yeah.
I would say the meetings are about an hour and a half. Oh, they just changed them to 12:15. I have no idea why. They're 12:15 now.
They struggle to search.
Yeah.
I think it was,
Last one started at 12:18.
I think it was lunch that
Through things.
was the struggle.
So if you go up to the state capitol, they have lunch, supposedly. I've only made up there once.
And the audio is much better at the stage.
Yes. Well, you can see the slides better too, right? It is better, for sure. It's a better experience. It's just 2 hours of driving, an hour and a half meeting.
Yeah, that's right.
That's a lot.
Well, I think that's it. We'll get these updated. We will also, we've been double checking with all of these boards on times and locations. So those that we haven't heard back from, we'll reach out again, get an updated list out to the council. And then,
You guys will set up our calendars.
yes,
Can
So
we
you'll-
also, when we're getting the minutes from things, get the ones for like the Utah Lake Commission? Well, it's not Utah Lake Commission anymore, it's the authority,
That's
right?
right.
And MAG as well.
yes.
Thank you.
I would just say I'm kind of light on committees, I'm noticing. So if somebody is like, okay, I took on too much, reach out to me, maybe I can take on some more. So,
For as
Just
long as we
depends.
have you.
So can we say that, what were you saying about Utah Lake Authority? Is that something a council member can get involved in?
No, I would just like to have the minutes of their meetings in our little meeting minute
Yeah, I
update
would
things.
second that.
Yeah, we'll make sure we get those as well.
You would think the MAG one would also be something you want minutes for, right?
Yep.
Perfect. I don't know if there's any other questions or discussion. I don't know if this warrants a motion, right? We didn't do this last year. The only change was to the library board. So that name was submitted to the mayor. So these are all kind of appointed in different forms and fashions.
Yeah, I think my recollection is that the handbook actually delegates the authority to make all these assignments to the chair. But I think, I also recall that kind of customarily, there's often been a motion to approve the list so that, it expresses the will of the council.
Okay, so I propose we make a motion to ratify these assignments to boards, commissions, and there's another word that's not on there, committees, as the will of the council,
That's listed on the screen.
as listed on the screen. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, seconded by George, and we will take a vote. George,
Yes.
Becky,
Yes.
Councilor Hovind,
Yes.
Councilor McKay, yes. Councilor Whipple,
Yes.
Councilor Garrett,
Yes. Yes.
Councilor Christensen. Okay, so that passes.
Let it be known our first vote was unanimous.
One thing, this is kind of administrative, but like Rachel sent out the neighborhood things, which is awesome, but it's not going to, I still need to figure out how to get them on my Google Calendar, because I'm just gonna be missing things, it's not on my phone. I need to figure out how to get those Outlook calendar things on my phone.
Perfect.
I just need help in that role if I'm gonna show up to these things.
Do you have the app downloaded on your, it still doesn't work?
I thought Elizabeth figured that out at one point, but none of this new stuff's going into my phone. Okay.
We'll get it figured out.
All right, next, a discussion regarding the audit committee, and this is again presented by Justin Harrison, our council executive director.
All right. So some thrilling updates about the audit committee. So when I first started with the city about a year ago, I came up with and really wanted to understand within our form of government, some of the structure that was put in place for some of these committees and assignments. Some are very much directed kind of at the will of the council. Others are statutory. Some are provided for by ordinance. And so trying to understand the audit committee, went back in the history and tried to see what was the creation, kind of what governs this body. And there wasn't much there. I was able to find some older meeting agendas, some minutes, and really the only thing I was able to find was able to track down a work meeting motion that created this committee. And so kind of with that in mind, as kind of a back burner project, had started to reach out to the state auditor's office and also consult with GFOA, the Government Finance Officers Association, to see what their recommendations were for local governments and audit committees. And they had a number of recommendations, and what we'll run through today is three updates that were part of those recommendations from both of those bodies. So one, to formalize the audit committee. Two, to adopt governing documents. Those in this case, those are in the form of an audit committee charter and an internal audit charter, similar to bylaws. And the third is transferring the duties of the internal audit function in city code. So as far as audit committee updates, again, recommendations given from the state auditor's office at GFOA. So the idea is to formalize the audit committee under the purview of the council, so that not only for the council's sake of understanding the governance, but also for transparency to know that within this form of government that has separate branches, that there are some checks and balances. Again, we talked about transferring the duties of the internal audit function to the legislative branch. It currently lives under the administration. And the recommendation from GFOA and the state auditor's office was to transfer that responsibility so that it is not under the purview of management that also oversees those finance functions. And third, the formalization of those responsibilities, oversight, and membership in the form of those bylaws or charters. And so this was brought to the audit committee at our last meeting on December 6th. I'll just run through quickly. All of these documents were in the backup material, and if there are any specific questions, feel free to stop me at any time. I just want to give you kind of high level what each of these documents will do. So the first, at the recommendation of the state auditor and GFOA, is to adopt the audit committee, in this case through resolution. So the resolution will formally establish an audit committee, and some of those functions include oversight of internal and external audit functions. So currently the audit committee approves the contract for the city's auditor. In this case, and to Councilor Hogan's point, there probably will be some additional meetings with the audit committee this year because we will be going out for a request for proposal for audit services. Our contract is ended with our current auditor. I would anticipate that they would put forward a proposal, but we will go through that process. So it provides a framework for evaluating financial reporting and really gives the public the understanding that the committee is committed to fostering a culture of integrity, accuracy, and ethical behavior. The goal is also to demonstrate a commitment and responsibility and stewardship of public resources, transparency, and efficiency. And it also references those governing documents that I mentioned before. Happy to pull up a copy of that resolution. There's a draft there if there are any questions specific to the resolution.
And now Gary might be wondering what he got himself into, but Gary, one of the questions that I posed was, or one of the concerns I expressed was, I'm not any financial guru in any sense. I'm not a CPA or have any background in that. I took an accounting class at BYU when I was in college, but that's not our role. Our role is not to pour through the financials, to be the auditors. I mean, this just formalizes that at least we have somebody overseeing the process. That's really all it is. And then I also to clarify that the city does have an insurance policy on us if something happens. We won't be held responsible personally.
It's important.
Yeah.
And on that,
I mean, as it gets more official, it makes you think like, well, how much do I need to really know?
Who has that been outsourced to previously, and what was the term of the contract?
We've always used auditors to do third-party audits. We do internal audits, and then we have third-party come in and do specific things, look at specific things.
Who's the CPA for the contract?
So HBME has been our auditor for the last at least 7 years, I believe. Might be 8. The last renewal was for 4 years, and so that renewal ended with this audit that was just completed.
See, we were just ahead of the curve in that we kind of had an audit committee just out of best practice, but now it's been formalized, and so that's what this is doing, saying we're going to be more formalized in our process.
So John Borgett and Kelsey Sauerbach here from finance, they may want to chime in. I'll just note, Councilor Hogan, to your point, I talked to John yesterday, and he assured us that our city liability coverage does cover those on boards and commissions. So no worries. But
Okay, John Borgett.
John, you want to turn on?
Is mic working?
You have to turn it on.
There's a front on the front.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, just a couple of clarifications. I think Justin's right on. One of the things that led us to establishing an audit committee too is, as you were aware, each year we have what's called a fraud checklist that the state auditor's office has asked us to go through each year. And one of the questions in that checklist is, do we have a functioning audit committee? And so that the state auditor's office does feel
pretty strongly about that. I would also say that we've actually been with HPD longer than 8 years, because when the RFP was issued, what actually happened was it was a 4-year RFP, and then there was an extension of 2 years that was added a couple of years ago. That goes back 6, and then before that, we were with them 4 years before that. So I actually think we've been with them like 12 years. I can verify it if it goes back further, but at least 12 years. And then I did have Dan Follett, he's our liaison with our insurance provider, go back and just verify that the members serving on that committee we do have errors and omissions insurance on them, and it applies to that committee. So anyway, there's a couple of things.
Okay, thanks, John. So as part of that audit committee resolution, I mentioned that the audit committee and internal audit committee, or audit committee and internal audit charters are referenced. And so those are really the governing documents, the bylaws. And so for the audit committee, it establishes what the committee's mission, composition, requisite skills, duties, responsibilities, and reporting requirements. So within there were some staff suggestions. I actually talked to one council member that has some questions, and these are by no means written in stone. They were really suggestions based on continuity. And so currently there is no written rule as far as composition of this committee. The recommendation, as this is, the audit committee is a bot or a sub-body of the council. The idea would be to have a majority of the members come from the council, so that it either be 2 members of the council, 1 member of the public, 3 members of the council, 2 members of the public. We do have and have had members of the public with unique backgrounds that have been very helpful in the past. And so really the idea was to set a minimum of at least 2 members of the council and 1 member of the public, leaving that open so that there can always be more, if that were the will of in this case, the council or the committee. So
Councilor Bogdan?
So I like having more members of the public that have more knowledge of accounting, because you're not going to always have someone like me that has a bachelor's in accounting, like that's going to know the ins and outs of this, or they should be. But what I didn't like about it is a 4-year term. Now the people from the public, that is quite the ask for 4 years. It's like being on a planning commission. And so, and even a member of the council, if you have that 4-year term that you're stuck in, that's something I wouldn't want to be saddled with for more than 2 at the most. So, I mean, those are things that, we could have 3 members of the municipal council if that's what you wanted, and 2 members of the public, but I would like more than 1 member of the public.
Sure. No, and I think you could always have 2 members of council, 2 members of the public. I just think you wouldn't want to, as the council being the fiduciary body for this, you don't want to outsource that to unelected members of the public. I think having that expertise is invaluable. So I think you would want to have at least 2 members of the council, at least 1 member of the public, and I think you could always have more. I think the term you could make 1 year. Doesn't have to necessarily be 4. The only thought was, those are council terms. Do you make it easy? Do you do that for continuity? That is a big ask, to your point, of members of the public. I think more important would be to not have limits for members of the public. We've had someone like Rick Anderson, who's been a great asset. I'm not entirely sure how many years he's been on. He's been on the committee since I've been here, and it's been great. So that's been at least a year. I think you would want to be able to have those members of the public with that knowledge on those boards if they would want to continue their service. So,
I mean, to that point though, if you said it's 2 years, but it's still not limited in terms of the number of terms, then it gives the person the option of continuing indefinitely, but that at least doesn't make them obligated to stay longer than 2.
People can step down if they need to before
That's
their
also
term
true.
is up. I'd want to keep it 4 years because I want to keep Shipley locked in as much as I can.
Yeah, he needs a chain. That's what we need, a
Yeah,
chain
yeah.
thing.
But is there an issue if we have 2 council members and 2 public members? If we want to have Shipley and Anderson, but we only have 2 council members to balance
Are
them?
you worried about the voting, that we have the majority? Is that the idea?
No, just, it's really entirely up to the council. I mean, just, my thought is as thinking of this from a government structure standpoint, the council is that budgetary authority and body, and it's really whether or not you want to relinquish some of that in the audit portion or not to folks that have not been elected. At the end of the day, it is going to be a recommendation. Things are going to have to come back to the full council. So there's not
Yeah.
concern there, but just
I don't feel like we're relinquishing anything, we're just getting even more advanced knowledge and input, which is great. Like, I think moving it to 2 is great.
Yeah. My concern with having 3 is, I could probably go for it now, but in 2 years, are you still gonna have 3 people that want an interest in this committee?
Sure.
So to have 2 members of the council and 2 members of the public, I don't see an issue with, as long as this body makes that final decision, right?
Yeah. Do you want to make a motion then?
Go for it, and you make the motion, and I can listen, and when I feel more comfortable with it.
Okay, we'll make a motion to change that 1 to a 2. Do we need a motion, Justin, or are we just gonna tell you?
I'd like.
Okay, Michael loves.
Can we take notes and then we'll make it as one motion at the end?
Okay,
So I've got
And
2.
then, are we also going to change the shall serve terms of 4 years as opposed to may, or, because right now it's still locked in at 4.
should we do May?
Even with the shall, if somebody has to drop out.
Yeah, and
Well,
We can't force them to be here as much as we want to be.
yeah, like if you died 2 years into it, we're not gonna force you post-mortem to continue for another 2 years. Is that right, Brian?
Yes, that's right. And on top of that, I've been working a little bit on updating the style of the code and the resolutions, and I would just delete shall and it just says serve 4-year terms, because those are archaic terms that confuse people on that. So I'm trying to take them out wherever I can.
So if people want
Let's
4,
not
so
add
2,
more.
so 2-year terms, 4-year terms?
That's what's right there. I guess.
I prefer 2.
2.
I don't.
So I guess
all right, we need a motion on that.
that's where the motion comes in, right?
Yeah.
So I make a motion to change that to a 2-year term versus a 4-year term.
Okay, is there a second on that?
Second.
All right, let's do a vote. Counselor Bogdan,
Yes.
Counselor Hoban,
Yes.
Counselor McKay, yes. Counselor Whipple,
No.
Counselor Garrett,
Yes.
Counselor Richardson, Counselor Handel.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so 2 things now. Are you still going?
Yes. I guess so within the audit committee charter, that was really the biggest question. Really other things spell out duties and responsibilities, reporting requirements. There is a reporting requirement that the audit committee would report to the full council at least once a year. Any other questions on the audit committee charter?
I just, could you pull that back up again? The language about the committee collectively should have expertise, I guess, right, that doesn't mean that individual council members have to have those, that area of expertise,
Just
right?
the committee as a whole.
Okay. Because we may not have somebody, right? I mean, there could be 7 of us with 0 accounting degrees. We have 1.
No, I think that's where those members of the public become invaluable. It really,
That's where I think you need more than 1.
all right. Before I jump to the internal audit charter, any other questions?
I
Do you want to make a separate motion on the 2 members of the public?
All right. Did we not already do that? Okay, so we're gonna do both of them together, the 2 years and the 2 members of public?
We already did it.
Oh, yeah, duh. All right, we'll make a motion to add 2 members of the public. Do I have a second?
I'll second that one.
So, we'll vote on that. Counselor Holman?
Yes.
Counselor McKay, yes. Counselor Whipple?
Yes.
Counselor Garrett?
Yes.
And Counselor Christensen?
Yes.
Counselor Hanley?
Yes.
And Counselor Bogdan?
Yes.
So that passes unanimously.
All right, next we'll jump quickly to the internal audit charter. Again, establishes the purpose, independence, authority, and the scope and responsibilities of what internal audit does. This is again overseen by the audit committee. Councilor Hogan made reference to this in the past. There have been specific areas that the audit committee has wanted to look deeper into. In the past, that has been done in 2 ways, either directly through council staff or through a third party, such as an internal auditor that the council has contracted with as an outside contract to look into whatever specific area that there may be interest. Any questions?
Counselor Bogdan?
So is that gonna be just limited to the committee that's gonna determine which area they wanna dig deep into, or does that come back to the council as a whole to vote on?
So within the bylaws, internal audit falls within the audit committee. So it would live there, not that it couldn't come back as part of the report for the full council.
So if we had questions about a certain department or something, then we could just shoot that over to the council or to the audit
I
committee.
think that'd be a great suggestion for the audit committee as part of the decision to what their topic may or may not be. Any other questions? All right. We'll jump to the last change. So this is the one code change that will need to be made. So currently, in Title II of Provo City Code, under the Department of Administrative Services, under the Finance Division, is located the duty of conducting internal audit services. So the recommendation from the State Auditor's Office and GFOA, as I mentioned before, is that the internal audit function be independent of management, and that within our form of government fall within the legislative branch. And so the thought was to move this still within Title II, but under legislative powers. So what we internally sometimes call the junk drawer of Title II under the executive director's duties. It currently includes coordinating administrative reviews and would add independent audits. So that's the only code change that would be part of this. Any questions? All right. That is all I have. We will bring this back, the resolution and the code change, at the next council night meeting, so on the 23rd.
Okay, thanks, Justin. All right, we'll take a 15-minute break and come back at 2:25.
So generous with your break.
We are ahead of time.
15
Recording stopped. Recording in progress.
All right, we are going to have a presentation regarding potential amendments to Provo City Code 2.29, the neighborhood district program. This is going to be presented by Rachel Breen. She has been running our neighborhood program this last year. She's our community relations analyst.
Okay, thank you so much. So excited to talk to City Council and those else in the room. So a little bit over a year ago, the City Council decided to change the neighborhood programs. We changed from the neighborhood program to the neighborhood district program. So I want to kind of let you know a little bit of how it's been going this past year and kind of some changes that we're proposing, or kind of more of a discussion to see some of your advice on how we should go forward. So just kind of by the numbers, before the neighborhood program was run with 34 individual neighborhoods. We still have the 34 individual neighborhoods, but now they're grouped into 5 districts. And so when they meet as a district, and they have a board that works together for each of these districts. So we created 5 new neighborhood district web pages where they have information specific to their area. This past year, we did 17 community outreach events where we set up our council booth. We were at the farmers market, Pioneer Day celebration, block parties, any place we could go, we would set up and try to let people know about the neighborhood program, also about how to contact the city council. That went really well, talking to people, just being out in their neighborhood, speaking with them about the program. One of the hard things about the program that I've struggled with is our attendance. So our average attendance is about 25 people. Keep in mind, half of those are the board members. So we have this entire district that can come meet together, but at the meetings, we're just not getting the people to come out. We get a few that come to every meeting. They're awesome. But despite our efforts, we can't get them to come to our meetings. We held about 40 meetings in 2023. Each district met about every 6 weeks. We had 53 district board members. All neighborhoods were represented except for East Bay and Fort Utah. We could not get anyone from those neighborhoods to represent. East Bay is usually a business owner. Fort Utah, we despite our efforts, couldn't get anyone that was interested. But here's the good news, which is kind of strange with our attendance that we have that so low. We send out a newsletter for each neighborhood. A newsletter goes out the week before the meeting, kind of saying, hey, this is what we're going to talk about. You should come. And there's a newsletter that comes out the week after the meeting saying, hey, this is what we discussed. We have a 70% average open rate on those newsletters.
It's remarkable.
Which is incredible.
It's remarkable.
And so people want the newsletters, they're opening them, they're reading them, they're interested in them. We created brand new neighborhood district Facebook pages. So that,
I'm curious, Rachel, do you get people responding to those emails asking you more questions at all?
I do sometimes, not a lot, but I do get people that email me back with questions.
And are those sometimes people that you don't see at the, like there's a new names?
Yes, it's names I don't recognize that respond to there. We did create brand new neighborhood district Facebook pages, and those have only been around for this past year. We have 1,300 likes and followers on that. And for the subscribers for the neighborhood district newsletters, we have 1,600 subscribers. 800 of those were added this past year.
That's awesome.
Usually with our outreach that we've done. So we have a lot of people who in their homes want to know what's going on in their neighborhoods, but they're not coming to the meetings. And keep in mind that 25 average attendance, that's counting Zoom and in person is usually what we have. We have sometimes, I think the biggest group we had 90 at one meeting, and then some meetings we had 7. And so it's really been, but they're usually right around 25, 30 people in person. But some of our successes, I have been really impressed with the people who are volunteering on our neighborhood district boards. They're all amazing. They've worked together really well, and they've really embraced the new program. I was very nervous starting this new program, but they have been, let's do it, let's see how it goes, and they've been great. So I wanted to kind of brag about their successes. For Neighborhood District 1, they received a matching grant for sprinklers at Scenic Circle Pocket Park. This is something they've been trying to do for a couple of years. They held their very first Northeast Provo Neighborhood Social, and I love that they invited city staff to their social, because one of the great things about this new program, since we're holding it here at City Hall, we get a lot of staff members come doing presentations, informing citizens about the city, and they've really embraced them. Kind of the movie star is Bryce from sanitation. They invite him to every party. They're obsessed with recycling, and he's now, like, he was the featured children's reader at the library. Like, it's been amazing. You can see how the citizens have really been craving this interaction with the city. It's been really fun to see that. We also, it was great to have them, this neighborhood board set up, because when we were afraid of all the flooding, the Public Works contacted me and they said, we've got a bunch of kids that keep clogging the drains at Rock Canyon Park, and it's gonna flood the neighborhood. Can you set up a team to watch that? So I could call up District 1, say, hey, can you set up a round the clock vigil? And they did. They had neighbors that surrounded the park. They each took a couple of hours a day where they would go out and check, and when the kids would fill it up, they would call Public Works, and Public Works would come and clean it out. So it was astounding how it works both ways. We give them information, they want information from us, but they were also such a big help because Public Works couldn't have someone out there all the time to watch that. They also participated in the grand opening of Quail Orchard Park, and that was really fun. So District 2, they received a matching grant to install a park bench at Slate Canyon Park and to install solar-powered traffic signs on Slate Canyon Drive. Those are the ones that tell you how fast they're going. And now that other neighborhoods know that you can do that, and the traffic manager is totally on board, like, people are excited because that's what they really want in their neighborhoods. So we might see more of those. They also had 2 Slate Canyon cleanup days, one for the canyon, one for Slate Canyon Drive. And they had a Provo bicentennial bike ride. That was really fun, that they supplied treats for. District 3 had a clean up trash and brush along Lakeview Parkway. They did this in combination with BYU's Y-Serve Community Cleanup Club. And I'm working more with the cleanup club. They clean up communities. And so we work with them a lot to set up service projects. We've got 2 more service projects this month that we're gonna do with BYU. Neighborhood District 4, they received a matching grant to complete sidewalks in the North Park neighborhood. They had 170 volunteers come to clean up brush at Lions Park, where it has that big hill. And the fire department was amazed. They've never had that many volunteers come out. They organized a cookie stroll, and there's me setting up my booth. If a neighborhood is having a party, I'm setting up a booth there and telling them about the program. They also had a Rotary Park ribbon cutting celebration. They had their annual Light the Hill, where they used some of their district budget money for extension cords and things for their Light the Hill project. They organized to stop the connection of 1500 West to 2000 South at Orem with the help of Councilor Colvin. And they also improved safety on 1460 North and Jordan Avenue. They brought that to the attention of the traffic manager in one of our meetings. He was like, yeah, this is a terrible intersection. And he went right up there and put up these little orange cone things that are permanent to make that a safer area. And then District 5, they always do their Independence Day party, but with our budget funds, which helps fund social events, we were able to reimburse them for the cost of shutting down the street for that. So that was really nice for the neighbor that always pays for that every year. They also purchased Provo vote signs that were really popular. The residents pushed UDOT and Provo City to turn on the no turn on red lights at the intersection of Timpanogos Elementary School. With that being a state road, they had set up these no right turn on red lights, but UDOT didn't give the keys to anyone to turn them on. So luckily the neighbors at these meetings really pushed. They said, you have these lights that never turned on. It's a dangerous intersection for our kids. So we contacted UDOT, we contacted the crossing guard supervisor, we contacted the traffic manager. We were able to figure out where that miscommunication was, get that going. And it's like the highlight of my day when I drive down and I see that little red light on there. So that was neighborhoods coming together in our meetings to improve their community. So we did a survey in September with all of the neighborhood board members and another survey with city staff that interact with the neighborhood boards to kind of say, hey, how's it going? And you were giving those in your supplemental materials if you had it's pretty long survey. But and after reading that, we decided to kind of change things up a little bit, kind of see how it goes for 2024. And some of our changes were just policy changes, so that nothing needed to be changed in the code. One of the things that the board members said is they really love the interaction with city staff. That was one of their most important things that they wanted out of the program. But the city staff didn't like meetings on Thursdays, and they didn't like them at 6:30. So this year, we're going to do the meetings on Wednesdays at 6 o'clock. And we're also going to, well, we already did, the mayor's meeting instead of 5 meetings, one for each district that the mayor did with all the department heads. We just did one that we held here in the council chambers. And we advertised the heck out of that meeting. And again, it was all the same people who go to every meeting. I think I only saw 2 new faces. So but we had a ton of people online, a ton of new people on Zoom. So maybe it's just getting out of the house. Maybe that's what we're struggling with.
And next year we'll make a point of not doing this so close to the holiday.
Right, yeah, we did, yeah, it was a little bit too close to the holiday. People were not in the mood for a government meeting. January.
Rachel, and one thing for, at least from my perspective, is that, you know, in the 5 years that I've been on city council, I had been aware of, I could probably count on 2 hands the number of neighborhood meetings that happened in my district that I mean, there were not very many meetings,
Right.
That's my point. And so I actually think the level of engagement, even though those numbers are not yet where we'd love to see lots and lots of people, but they're getting much more information, they're much more engaged. And I'm talking about are the very people who would be the neighborhood chairs in the old program. It seems to me that they're more informed, they're more engaged than maybe they were by quite a bit from the previous model, because it was very uneven. I mean, some neighborhoods would,
Right.
have regular meetings and they would do lots of things, and others would just sort of only have a meeting when an emergency came up or when some
Right.
proposal came up. So I think the level of contact and information and engagement's got to be. Anyway, I'm just thinking of a different way to look at that statistic of
Right.
25 average people at those meetings. I don't necessarily see that as a loss
Right.
or a problem. I think we still want to improve that, but I still think that's an improvement over what we had before.
Right, because I have been thinking about that, and maybe those 25 people that do come, they're kind of the leaders in their neighborhoods that then go out and give this information to the rest of their neighbors who, are busy or tired, or it's just not on their radar on that. So I think it is important that we still do that. Okay, well,
Rachel,
yes,
I just want to say qualitatively too, that I think there's a lot of value in, let's just take my district, for example. Let's just say District 4. You've got the Carterville path, right? In the past, you never would have seen anybody from Grandview worried about or concerned or advocating for a Carterville path. And now you have, it's just an example to me of, you have these neighborhoods that are now interacting and concerned with projects going on in each other's neighborhoods. And I think there's just a lot of value to that. In the past, you would have seen, you know, a specific neighborhood worried about something specifically in their neighborhood, or participating. It's just different in my mind. You have matching grants. You have, you know, Grandview working on a matching grant with River Grove, and you know, it's just I think that's a lot of value there.
yeah. It's been really great seeing the value. I know for me personally, I'm in the Grandview North neighborhood. I live on State Street. So I walk 2 inches, I'm in the Carterville neighborhood. And so I like the District 1 because I feel like I have more in common maybe because I live on such a busy road. My concerns are more with Carterville, River Grove, than the more established, quiet neighborhoods in Grandview. And so I liked it. That's what made me want to apply for this position because I really was excited for the new changes that they were doing. And I have had neighborhood chairs say, I always felt alone. Like I was the only person and now I have a team to help me do these projects where before it was so daunting to do it by myself.
I was just going to say that I think the opportunity for biggest growth is online. You've made some really helpful improvements. I've watched a lot of Zoom meetings, including these Zoom meetings. It's painful. It's nice to kind of hear for the first time, but it's painful. And in the neighborhood meetings, you've done a good job of getting people speaking to the microphone, make it more accessible. I think that's our area of improvement, our opportunity for improvement, is making that even easier on the eye to watch and follow online.
Right. We had, that was one of my disappointments was that we did not have the sound system set up. And so when we first started the meetings, we had a lot of people online, but the sound was so bad that they just stopped coming. And now we've improved the sound, but they just don't, I haven't been able to bring them back. It's like you said, it is painful to try to listen to. You can't hear anything, you can barely see anything. It is hard. Okay, so some of the other policy changes that we're doing in 2024 to try to entice people, we're gonna serve them dinner at the meetings, especially since we're starting the meetings at 6 o'clock. So we'll have a light meal highlighting a local restaurant. And they also request.
Is that donated?
It is not donated. We're using the funds. We had set aside funds to send out another mailer citywide. Back in December, when this program first started, we sent a mailer out to all Provo addresses, and that cost a lot of money to tell them about the program. And it really people didn't say they ever saw them. It didn't really stick. So this year, instead of sending out an individual mailer, we've done information about the program with the schedules in 2 of the utility bill newsletters and also the back cover of the Rec Center magazine. So we've sent it out to all the homes in Provo 3 times for maybe I think it cost us $500 to do that as compared to $12,000 to send it to all of them. So we're using that money we saved to do these meals and see if that gets people out. We'll see. We'll see if it works to get them coming because we're going to try to highlight local restaurants. So maybe they'll be like, hey, I want to try that out, and I'll hang out at the meeting too. We're trying it because we have the extra funds.
Okay. Food usually works.
Yeah. But, oh, and they also, the board members requested more training, so we're going to have 2 board member training sessions. So we're having one tomorrow night. Specifically, development services will be there to explain why it's important for the neighborhood chairs to attend planning commission and city council meetings. That's one of the things I haven't been able to get them to do. They'll go to the neighborhood meetings, but then they won't go to the planning commission and city council meetings. So they're gonna.
Will that be recorded?
What was
Will
that?
that be recorded?
Yes, yes, that training meeting will be recorded. And we'll also have parks talking specifically about the process of how to do a matching grant for park equipment, like a park bench, telling exactly step by step, because that's what most people are interested in, but we're not really sure how to go about it. So we're going to have parks do that. And then also engineering will be there to talk about exactly how to do a, how to request a traffic study. Councilor Brockton?
I appreciate everything you've done, Rachel, and this training sounds really, really amazing because it can be quite the task to even start a neighborhood matching grant application. Those things are insane.
Yeah.
So to have that kind of training step by step would really be beneficial.
Right, and that was actually prompted by District 3. They're trying to do a matching grant for a park bench, and none of us had done it before, and we weren't sure, so we're like, let's have that be the training so we know exactly how to do this. And I'm sure most other people, other groups would also like to do something similar. We increased the service hours for the matching grants. They earn the matching grants by doing service hours, and each service hour is kind of given a dollar amount, which they are then matched with the grant. And so it was $10 an hour. We've increased that to $15 an hour. So instead of 500 hours of service to get the $5,000 grant, it's now 334 hours of service to get the $5,000 grant. And we're trying something new because a lot of people said there was too many meetings. Like Councilor Henley said, some neighborhoods, like Joaquin, had a meeting every month. Other neighborhoods never had meetings. So for some of these meetings, us having them every 6 weeks, they're like, that's too much, you're killing us. So we're switching to quarterly district meetings. With the option that they could have their own neighborhood meeting in their neighborhood, but city staff would not be at those meetings. Because we also had a few that felt like some stronger neighborhoods were kind of controlling the district meetings and their concerns weren't ever heard. So then that way they could have their own little neighborhood meeting between the district meetings.
While we're on things that don't require city code changes, one thing that occurs to me, based on what you presented just a moment ago about those successful park events, I wonder when the weather is good, if we just moved the district meeting to a park in one of the areas and we just made it more of a social interaction and invite city staff and council members to come and mingle with people. So it's a little more, I mean, maybe we would present some information if we needed to, but I like the idea of maybe once a year doing something that's more fun and at one of the parks. And so we're going to them and we're not asking them to come here. And maybe that helps stimulate more interest, connect more people. I don't know.
I like that. Like maybe they really liked the Q&A with the city council that we did last year. So maybe
that would be a good
Q&A in the park.
Yeah, because that is a hard one to get city staff to. They definitely resist not doing things for the neighborhood program within City Hall.
Yeah.
But that's a great idea. I like that, the Q&A with the council members.
Councilor?
I guess you could set it up more like National Night Out, where the police department have those different booths.
Oh, that's
where
good.
you can come and do that. But the one thing that I would say, if you've only got 4 meetings per district per year, it seems like every time I come to them, they have specific questions they want to ask staff. And then you do have those Zoom followers, and those would be really hard to do out in the
Yeah, I mean, if that's
So
the
if
case.
it's like an additional meeting,
I'm thinking more of an additional,
right?
It's just a Q&A, I think.
Yeah.
I like
Yeah.
that.
Maybe with all of the neighborhoods together, all the districts together, all 5 of them together, all 4 of them, how many of them there? All 5 of them together, or do you want to?
well, I'm thinking in each of their areas, so they don't have to come to City Hall. I do 5 of them during the summer months. A Q&A, so it's just the council members coming out, not any city staff, because they like to just stay here.
And then that one wouldn't be Zoom.
Right, it wouldn't be Zoom, it would be in person. It wouldn't be one of the official district meetings.
With no development services stuff.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, and Justin, can do hot dogs? Justin barbecues the hot dogs?
I mean, we don't have a J-Dubs budget, but we have a Costco hot dog budget.
Or it might even be fun to have COP there to do their hot dogs, because they do, normally they do stuff around there. Justin can join COP and cook hot dogs and.
That actually is a good idea, because one of my struggles is getting the COP officers to our neighborhood meetings, because they've already done a 12-hour shift at 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
They are exhausted, and to stay like an extra hour to do a meeting is so hard for them. So that's a good idea, to combine like COP and Q&A with the city council. I don't know, I just thought this Q&A with the city council went so well last year, and the residents loved it. And I was blown away that you council members, you know every answer. They were asking hard questions. I was like, this isn't even about their district. There's no way they're gonna know that, but you guys knew them. It was great. Okay, so that's kind of the policy changes that we're putting in. And then here we go. This is the proposed code changes. And again, these are just proposals. The proposals, these are going off of the feedback we got from the surveys, just to kind of see how you feel about this. There's only maybe 1 or 2 that I feel strongly about. The rest, I kind of need your input on that. So the first one was to increase the number of neighborhood district executive board members. So there are 2 representatives from each neighborhood. Right now in the code, it says the boards are made up of 7 to 11 people trying to get a representative from each neighborhood. So some of ours, like I might have 3 from a certain neighborhood, other ones just have 1. So there's kind of this idea of doing the 2 from each neighborhood. Keep in mind, we had a struggle getting the board members we did. But that's something that we could try. And if it is something that you want to propose on that, I would suggest not having it be implemented until January of 2025, just because I do have some districts that have 3 members from a neighborhood, and I wouldn't want to kick someone off because we're only allowed 2.
Okay, how do you want us to do this? What's easiest? Do
Yeah.
you want us to make motions on each of these? Should we do just straw polls as you go down each one of them?
Yeah, what would be the best way?
I'm leaning towards straw polls on each bullet item. Just raising our hands, but what do you think, Justin?
I mean, you can do either way. I think this really comes from the board and city staff survey, and I know it's in the back material. Most of the council members have read this in the past. You know, how strongly do you feel about this? And, you know, that's really up to you. We can make any or all of these changes. I think, to Rachel's point though, the biggest thing would be to make an effective date of January 1, 2025.
Not on all of them, right? Some of them would be this year.
So yes, this
yeah.
one is the one I feel like it has to be January 2025. Some of these other ones could be immediately.
Yeah.
Would be fine. Councilor Rowe?
On that first one, how, is this coming from the executive boards, or is this, and how many of them are asking for the 2 representatives? Is it part of you?
I've heard it from a few board members, and I've also heard it from Councilor McKay.
Okay.
In that a few of the council members thought this was how it was going to be set up. And we're surprised by the 7 to 11 number on that.
Because some, if you did 2 of each, it'd be 14. So like, oh, well, we couldn't do, so.
What's the problem we're trying to solve with that one?
I think it's just,
Consistency.
as, if we're going to encourage them to have a neighborhood meeting between the district meetings, it'd be nice to have a partner to work with, and so you're not trying to do it all alone. But again, this was just something that was suggested to me on that.
Yeah, I'm struggling to say, I mean, knowing how difficult it was, and not really having a clear sense of what problem it solved, it doesn't feel to me like a high priority.
Councilor Hogan?
So I was just gonna say, the reason we went with a 7 to 11 and it could kind of be made up of different ways is because, all right, nobody from Fort Utah has stepped up. Let's make sure we still formulate this board, and if that means 3 from Sunset, the Sunset neighborhood or whatever, need to step up, we can fill those vacancies from somewhere else. So the idea was like, we've had struggled to get participation in the past, and so we can kind of mold and shape. But I don't think, I mean, if we can get 2 from each, that's perfect. I'm just, maybe we can't.
See, there's some districts we can get 2 from each, but it's over our number, so we can't do 2 from each, so
Okay.
some get less representation.
And one way to solve that
So
maybe
that
just
wasn't the intent,
increasing
obviously.
your maximum number.
Yeah.
As opposed to mandating
max,
2
that would
each.
take care of that.
The intent was just to make sure that we had a board staffed with enough people.
Right.
And if that meant we had to pull from other neighborhoods more. The intent was never to box out a neighborhood like, oh, sorry, we're already full here. Or, have it lopsided in any way, so.
I mean, if we want more participation, then I think increasing the number makes sense, but saying that it has to be 2 from every neighborhood seems like a huge headache. Because we're just not gonna be able to do it in a lot of cases, and if the issue is we're not taking advantage of the people who are stepping forward, who wanna be involved, then we can increase that. I mean, my thought always was, if in those districts where some neighborhoods aren't represented or as well represented, like you were describing earlier, this hopefully creates a broader sense of connection to other adjacent neighborhoods, and that people, if there's one neighborhood that doesn't get representatives, other people on that board are at least looking out for it, which is better than what we had when we had nothing.
Right, and that has certainly been true with District 4 and District 1 have really embraced it, and they work as a team, very much so, very much as a team. And then I have other districts that kind of struggle with that. They're still, I'm this neighborhood and I don't want to, so I have some that kind of struggle, but changing the numbers isn't gonna change that. They're still going to struggle with that. They just haven't embraced how some districts have totally embraced it. They just really work together, but other ones haven't.
I just think that having been a part of both programs, honestly, I think 2 from each neighborhood would be okay. But like over in District 3, they haven't quite grasped into pulling Fort Utah along because it's more my neighborhood and I'm gonna take care of my neighborhood. So I think that'd be good just to have 2 from each neighborhood. But my concern would be if they're gonna go together, you might wanna have one dominate and one be more of a vice kind of a thing.
Right, what we were thinking, because they have a 4-year term and they are staggered, so that whoever has seniority would be like the senior representative, and the other one would be the junior, and then as that one leaves, that one would then become the senior, and the next person coming up would be the junior. That would be a way to make it so that you could have like a hierarchy with the 2 in case there were problems with them trying to figure out who's in charge of that neighborhood. So, do we want to do a straw poll on this one to see?
Yeah.
And then just to clarify,
Okay.
I just asked Chair McKay, maybe others aren't sure, but it's basically, your proposal is up to 2, so a max of 2 per neighborhood.
Yes, it doesn't have to be. but
Meaning, so, you know,
there's
if we can't fill it, that's fine, but she's saying, let's not have it so lopsided in favor of one neighborhood within that district.
Yes, that's exactly right, yeah.
Okay, I misunderstood then what was being.
Because some of those
Proposed,
neighborhoods
yeah.
that she was saying, feel that there's more dominant neighborhoods.
Yeah, that I
And they have
understand. I
three-
thought we were saying we
they
had to
have
have
three
2 from every
people
neighborhood.
versus. Okay, so Laura,
So the only other thing to think of, and this is kind of looking forward a little, so one of the other recommendations from some of these neighborhoods were to change their district. So Pleasant View moving to District 1
right,
and University moving to District 5.
Right.
That would give you 8 and 9 neighborhoods per
Yeah.
district. So that maximum number would just need to be changed to 18.
Yeah.
So.
yeah, so I don't know how we wanna word it, if we do max, if we just say at least 2, up to 2 per neighborhood.
Up to 2 per neighborhood with a maximum
18
membership of
It goes up to
18.
18.
So just clarification, so are we just voting on the first one now?
Yes. We'll just-
And the rest will take, revisit sometime in the year?
Oh, no,
No,
we're
she's
good.
saying we're just gonna do a quick spell.
We're
But
all
if the rest of them aren't impacted until next, year, why don't we wait and actually get more experience with it and make the decision, revisit this in July, August, September?
Well, some things will be, we can implement a lot of these things right now.
Oh, I thought she was just saying the first one was gonna be.
So
The first one would be the delayed one.
would not be until next year, but the
Oh, I
rest
see,
of
the other
them
one, okay.
could be now, could be now, depending on what.
But we're just saying straw poll, thumbs up, but you're gonna come back with
Yes.
proposed language, so on, so we're not actually definitively voting.
No, this is just
That
to
makes sense.
see if you want me to even come back with this.
Got it.
And just so everyone knows, this was presented to all the neighborhoods. They're expecting some changes. It was a positive feedback. So they've already all been presented, the same thing were being presented.
Okay.
Okay, so just do a straw poll on this one.
Well, just
Okay.
one thing, so up to 2, or we would like 2 for each neighborhood, but I don't know if we need to say how many total because
Because,
it would just be set by the number of neighborhoods, and that might end up shifting if we change
So we
boundaries.
could take that, just take that language out.
let's
of
just
the
worry
proposal.
about up to 2 for every neighborhood.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
Yeah, I think right now in the code, it says at least 1 per neighborhood.
and then it maxes it out,
Right.
which is our problem. That's
Yeah.
the problem.
Yeah.
So, all right, so whoever's in favor of coming back with proposed language for this one to have up to 2 for each neighborhood,
In favor.
in favor,
And taking out the limit of 11.
yes.
Yes.
Or that 7.
Yes. 7 to 11. All right, the next one.
Okay, great. Okay, so the next one of the feelings about the new program is that a lot of people don't like that now the board members are appointed by the city council rather than being elected by residents in their district. So this one, we were kind of torn, because a lot of people in the old program we want to be elected by our neighbors. But then a few people were also, no, I like that I was appointed because I would never get elected because the same person has been elected for the last 10 years. And so they loved the appointment process because then they got a chance to be a part of the program. And then we also had one other person that finally got to be a part of the program because of her job. She's not allowed to hold any type of elected position. So the fact that she was appointed made it so she could be a part of it. And so we were just kind of thinking, if we have 2 representatives per neighborhood, maybe do 1 be elected, 1 be appointed. But I'm not sure if that'll work if we're just doing, you can have up to 2 from each neighborhood. But I guess maybe my main question is, how do you feel about election versus appointment?
So I can provide some context again around the conversations that we had. There were concerns expressed by holding elections, and it's part of the council's neighborhood program, it's almost like we worried about our responsibility over these elected officials. And the fact that, you know, if they're elected and do grandma rules apply? You know, there was just a lot of like, these guys are elected, but it's by like 5 people showing up to a meeting, right? And we weren't comfortable kind of sanctioning that election and saying like, yeah, we validate this election that really wasn't by any means official in any way, but you were elected and we are validating that. So those were kind of the concerns of like, we as a council are uncomfortable. And by the way, this was just part of the council. This was a committee, and these were, you know, some on the council felt this way. So that's why we opted for like, well, let's have people apply and then we will just appoint them. And there was that concern, but this joint proposal kind of alleviates that concern around like the same person every time getting elected. So I think those concerns are alleviated, but there still is kind of that concern of like us sanctioning or approving or validating this election that really wasn't valid in a lot of ways.
So what power do they have?
What's that?
What power does the chair have? Yeah, so what does it really matter? If they had power, I could see it wouldn't matter, but they don't have power.
Yeah, I mean, if there's not a concern.
That wasn't the perception that we were hearing from citizens, and it goes back to that issue. Some neighborhood chairs, you know, exercised an enormous amount of influence in the neighborhood, and the neighborhoods were saying, look, there was no proper balloting process, proper election process by which this person assumed that position. And that person was then sort of acting as representative of the folks in the neighborhood. I mean, I think that the underlying question for me was, does a city our size need a lower level election process or not? And if we don't, then what can we do to engage more citizens effectively in the city? And it was so uneven, and it was also incredibly difficult for Rachel's predecessor to run those elections. And we kept getting complaints about the legality of the elections. People, and a lot of them were very legitimate, complaints that it wasn't proper noticing, or, 3 people elected the person, and it varied so much from neighborhood to neighborhood that it was very frustrating. And I think, I understand the perception that we're appointing people in some sort of non-democratic way, but I mean, we have not said no to anyone who's been nominated, as far as I'm aware. I can't think of a case. I think if there's a way to get more, we could say there's a limited, or there's a minimum number of people who have to nominate you to be considered, if that's an issue. But I think we're going to open up a huge can of worms if we start this process, and especially if we have like a 2-tiered process. Right. Then it's like, what it does is it just invites this competitive anxiety about what it means to be involved. And it's, to your point, it's not supposed to be a position of power, and yet people were treating it as such. And so the idea that the election is the means by which that person steps into that position throws all of the pressure onto the election process, which we can't possibly manage. There are other ways of getting more people involved in getting their voice to the city council that I think we still haven't fully exploited. But opening up elections again, to me, just feels like a big can of worms, and it doesn't feel like it solves a problem that we have. I think it creates more.
Fulfills an ego.
Chair McKay.
I think that, I've always been opposed to the appointment from the beginning. I do want elections. I do think this is a great compromise. I think that through Rachel and our new program and the organization of it, and that we'll solve a lot of the problems that George was just mentioning. And I just think it's a good compromise. It takes care of the problems, and we have created problems by appointing. There's people that don't even come to meetings on the principle of it. And that's their choice. But like to say it hasn't created problems, it has. We've lost people that were extremely involved in the city before that aren't involved at all now. So it has made a significant change, I think. But I think marrying the two together will get the best of both worlds. Brian?
This is in some ways, in reality, just a semantic issue, but I think it's important as far as moving forward. My suggestion would be, and again, this isn't taken aside, but if you go down that route, my suggestion after years of working this is don't use the word elected or election. That's really not what it is, even when we're talking about, I mean, to Rachel's point before, actually don't think that this woman that she mentioned would have been prohibited from participating because these people are not elected officials and never were, even under the old system.
Right.
So if you want to call it nominating and selection, neighborhood selection, I just would not use, I would just not use the word election at all, because that's not what it really is. But people grasp onto that word and think that it means that.
Well, that's actually what I thought that we had formally changed, right? Was that it was a nomination process. All we're doing is saying, yes, I suppose in some scenario, there's a theoretical situation in which we would have reason to say no, but we haven't said no to anybody who's been proposed.
To that, at the very beginning, when we had all of the new names coming in, sometimes we had more than two for different neighborhoods, like, 3 or 4. I think one had like 4 or 5 people.
Right.
So then we did have to choose and say no to some people just because there were too many for the slots. That hasn't been a problem since then, and we encouraged all those people to go ahead and come to the meetings. But just to be slightly more accurate, we have had to be selective and say no.
That's helpful. I mean, I think it goes to, there's a perception. I mean, I get it. I think that when you use the word election, it creates that expectation that this is,
You can change the term. Don't like that.
And I don't want the perception of being anti-democratic. Somebody in the survey put it as like, we're, but I can't, like I say, I can't think of a single time where anyone has said, we're gonna jam this person through. That hasn't been the way it's been operating. But I don't know if it would help if we said this is a nomination process by which you gather, a half dozen nominations. I mean, we've only had, that's been the thing that's been a little, we did set it up so that we would get that, but the feedback has been very uneven, right? Some people will get one comment from somebody saying this looks like a good person, or I know this person and I really like them. And other people will have 6, and so maybe we could figure that out. It's like
I'm wondering if the appointment or selection, because a lot of the feedback I get from people that were against the appointment process is what they say to me is the city council only wants people that will do their agenda in the neighborhood program. So I'm not sure exactly what this agenda is they're talking about, but they are under the impression that you were in the closed meeting going, well, this person really loves this development, so I'm gonna have them be chair and not this person who hates this development. So that's what they thought was going on, which was not going on at all in the process. So I'm wondering if it's just a different way of doing it.
I think that's what makes me nervous about this proposal is it sounds as if this is going to solve that problem, and it will not. It will actually only get worse.
Right.
Anyway, because then you create 2 classes of people. It's like, oh, well, you were the appointed one, but we were the duly elected people, which again, we can't possibly promise unless we're willing to create a lower level set of representative government, which is a whole different question. Then we got to invest a lot of money in that to get the word out in every neighborhood.
I see.
Did I miss who will administer these elections?
It would just be Rachel, just
This
like
is
elections.
done in
These
a
elections,
meeting.
just like.
Well, the reason I asked is because one of the impetuses for some of the changes to the programs, we had a election that was highly controversial. Developer had 100 students come out, and then there was accusations of paying students $5 per attendance and, to show up, and there was crazy stuff, and then they wanted to redo the election, and voter fraud, and how do we credential these people, and it was like, oh my gosh, we're not doing this anymore, right? Because it was just such a hassle to do these elections. I'm just throwing it out there as something to consider, that we're getting back in that business, and is that the business we want to be in?
I think the problems that we're referencing were so minute compared to the bigger picture. And I think we've corrected them by being at City Hall and having Rachel and having the organization that we do, and having even just seeing the type of people that come now as a group. It's not as one neighborhood, right? There is a district, and that just changed the dynamics a bit, where it's more.
Yeah, well, this is something that we wanted to have the program going, and then we'd look at again. But if we've got an average of 25 people attending a meeting, they're not all from one neighborhood. I don't see that we've got a critical mass of numbers for the selection by the neighborhood of their own representative with our current attendance. If we had, 100, 200 people attending each meeting, so you had like 20 from each neighborhood, then I think it would make sense, because, you say, okay, at this meeting that's coming up, we're going to have the neighborhood selections for this neighborhood, and this neighborhood within the district. Please be sure to come. But given our participation rates, I don't think we have it in. It would end up being, I think, similar to what we had before, where 3 people who show up to a neighborhood meeting end up like saying, not it, and then Craig is stuck as the neighborhood chair. So even though this is significantly better, I don't think that we have reached a point where we can have that self-selection. And as a matter of practicality, it makes sense to continue with the appointment and to let everyone know we want all of their feedback on these candidates. We're not choosing the candidate and like recruiting somebody to come and do this. They're still coming up through the neighborhood. They're self-selecting, and we're taking every feedback that comes to us very seriously.
Can we call it advise and consent, that's what the council's doing? It's a nomination and advise and consent that we, and again, maybe we up the standard in terms of how the nomination process works, so that it requires somebody to do a little more talking to others.
You have to have it seconded.
I don't know.
Just last thing I'll say, we could also just try the hybrid approach for a year, and then we could come back and make changes when Rachel's lost her mind over these elections.
Well, we don't want to break Rachel. We don't want to break her.
No, I'm just saying, like, we could try it.
So the one issue would be, this is another one that I think you couldn't start until 2025, just because you have board members that were given 4- and 2-year terms. So you'll have some that will come off after this year, and then you would theoretically have openings.
And there'll be openings throughout the year, just like we have had it, stepping down or people coming up to.
Right.
If in fact as you said, the neighborhoods do have more say than they think in getting these appointments made, that's the message that they need to hear more. The perception now is that the council has taken the neighborhood program away from them. But if that's not true, if whoever is being recommended has been engaged, somehow that message has to be better communicated, and to make them feel like anyone can participate, and that it's really not the council's program.
Yeah. I believe we have attempted to do that, but the people who were most angry about this are not inclined to listen to anything we say that contradicts the opinion they have.
Your neighborhood in question. I spent hours trying to explain what the program was, how it worked, why we want them to still be involved, and they just pulled out.
But they don't even come, do they?
No.
They don't come.
No. So I don't know what the solution to that particular problem is, but I do think I think we should celebrate a lot of the successes that you were just outlining as evidence that this program is a significant improvement. I mean, this is a totally separate question that I've talked to a number of counselors about, but There are citizen assembly models that we could look at where we, on particular issues, we can solicit demographically representative citizens at random to be involved in a sort of vetting of a particular issue, and it engages people more in gets them more in depth on a particular issue, and it gives us the confidence that we've had similar confidence with the scientifically reliable survey that the city did, where we really went in and got people's feedback and from every neighborhood, from every demographic about a whole host of issues in Provo. That to me as a elected official is much more helpful than just the arbitrary, person who comes to a city council meeting. As much as I value that, I don't know what I'm getting. I know that when I'm hearing somebody voice their opinion, I'm listening to what they're saying because it's the content of what they're saying that matters to me. I'm not saying, oh, there were 2 people or 5 who came and spoke in favor of that, so therefore I'm going to vote this way or that way, right? I mean, I think we all recognize that there's a sort of arbitrary nature to that process, and I think we just keep building more of that arbitrary nature unless we figure out ways to just keep the playing field level. So that's why I'm just personally opposed to opening that can of worms up again, because I think it creates a different set of expectations that we can't meet. And I think we can keep showing to the public that we are involving their voices, we are engaging them, we are giving them more information, we're being more transparent, and hopefully over time build more trust. But I think it's a false illusion if we say this is how we're going to do it.
I was going to say, you've done such nice work this last year. I don't know what the rush to make a different decision would be when we don't have clear data. Why don't we let this play out? Even if you talk about 25 people, you're right. Compared to what it used to be, that's a home run. So let that play out. Let's come back to this when we have more data. I don't know what the benefit would be to making a decision now with lack of data.
Right.
So I guess 2 points of clarity, then is there a reason we have to decide today on the rest of these that might not take place for a year? But then also, can you clarify for me, are we legally bound to not make changes for a year, or is it we just don't want to tick people off who were appointed and they're not getting to serve their entire term?
Yeah, I think it's the latter.
Okay.
I think with all the changes that have been made, I think there would be more harm than good done by telling people,
right,
thanks for your 1 year of service, but that's all you get. Now go get elected.
Well, we wouldn't put any of these in effect until the people done the term. I mean, they're not.
Yep.
It's not. I don't think that's an issue.
Well, I think for Craig's point, I'm okay just addressing what we can address today and need to address today, like the 2 representatives for the chamber, right? And then see how it goes this year again.
Well, we have a year with a ton of data. We have all those surveys, and we have I think we should go through them all and vote. And it's fine if we don't do them.
Yeah, we're doing this because when this was originally passed last year, that city council said to revisit it in 1 year. And so that's what we're doing, is we're revisiting.
I think that's really appropriate.
But we don't have to do any of these changes. This is just kind of what came up from the survey.
I think you might just have some hesitancy on new council members come and be like, all right, I'm gonna blow up the neighborhood program for what it was last year. And maybe they can get some experience this year.
Well, should we skip to the ones that I think are important?
Yeah, I think just with this, with second bullet point number 2, I see several others here that I think are actionable. On this one, I think I share Craig's view that it's a controversial enough or a significant enough change to the program that I don't think we have the kind of information. I just don't feel the justification for it. So I'd rather put that one off for 1 year, and we can come back to that question.
Why don't we put that one off to like October so that it can be implemented the next year if we so decide.
Agreed.
Okay.
Awesome.
Right, now, really quick, guys. There is soup and sandwiches. Do you guys want to start with that and then we'll keep going over these while we eat, or do you just want to wait?
Is that our dinner, or is that
Yes, that's our dinner, and then there's snacks
It's an awfully
too.
early dinner.
Early dinner because of
Yeah.
You tempt me with food at any time of the day, and I will take that offer, and then,
Okay, so should we grab food quick and then come back and start with number 3?
I can wait.
Well, we're not gonna, I don't think we're gonna have time, so.
Oh, I see what you're
My point is,
Is this our last item?
uh-huh.
Okay, let's do that then. I'm okay with that. Grab
Okay,
some food.
so let's
come
grab
back
food and then
eat.
come back and then we'll finish as much as we can.
Okay.
Recording stopped. Recording in progress.
We decided to do.
Wait till table it till October.
Table point two till.
Yes.
Although, can I just say one thing? I don't know if it should be, can we call it advise and consent that that's what we're doing? Does that help? Or, I don't know.
We won't use the word
Instead of
elected.
using the word appointed.
Oh.
Approved.
Approved.
He wants to use.
Yeah,
the word like nomination.
I'm wondering if it was the process, because it was such a rushed process, because I came in mid-November, and we had to get those appointments before January, and it was so rushed.
Yeah, that was.
I feel like maybe the public thought something sneaky was going
Yeah.
on or something, just because we had to slam those in during the holidays.
I wouldn't even mind that it doesn't, if we just use the verb approve rather than appoint. Because that's essentially what we're doing.
Right.
People are putting themselves forward and we're saying yes or no. So we're
Anything's better than elected.
Right.
Well, appointed is also offensive.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at, yeah.
Okay, so the next one is, allow board members to serve consecutive terms without, kind of the way it's worded right now is that you can't serve a consecutive term if you're a board member. But if we can't find board members after 3 months, then you can go ahead and serve. And with the amount of trouble we have finding board members, I think we're gonna have a lot where you're gonna have nobody for 3 months. So I'm a little bit concerned about that. I mean, it may change down the line.
And there's a significant learning curve that these individuals have voiced, that there's a learning curve where they
Right.
don't want, like, I'm just getting started on one project that I want to do for the neighborhood grant, and you can't get it done in a year. Like, they're working on a lot of things that are more than, they take time.
Right, and so the ones that were given the 2-year term, they're the ones that are mostly concerned about. They're like, it took me a year to even know what I was doing. Now I want to do this project. Those projects take time, and so we can allow board members to serve consecutive terms, but do we want to keep it so they have to wait that 3 months before they can be back on, or do we want to take that out completely, that they can't serve consecutive terms? And again, if they're being approved, Councilor Bogdan?
Honestly, to your point, even in any kind of city appointment for planning commission or boards, we're appointing the same people over and over and over again. Because either one, there's a limited amount of people that have that knowledge and expertise, or two, no one wants to step up and do it. Now, these guys are getting, however you want to say, approved by the neighborhoods, the areas, the districts, whatever they are, every year. So as long as they're okay with approving them every year, I don't see the problem. I don't see why we would want them to wait for 3 months before they have to come and be reappointed again. Just let them serve. If the public doesn't want it, they'll vote them out. They'll see them. Or they'll find somebody to step up to run.
I agree.
So do we want to do a straw poll on that one?
Yeah.
What was the logic behind that policy?
I think it was so that not the same people are on the board endlessly. I think the idea was you serve your term, then you're off for a term, and then 4 years later, you can serve again. I think that's what I'm guessing the point was.
But is it solved by increasing, I mean, because I still have that concern, but is it solved by increasing the length of the term? So that people, like you're just saying,
Well,
they don't feel like.
My concern is that January of 2026, I'm gonna have a bunch of people whose term has ended, and I'm not going to have anyone to replace them. Anyone stepping up to replace them. That's my concern. Their concern is, I've just gotten the hang of this program. I want to be in it. I don't want to wait 4 years before I'm a part of it again.
Yeah. Seems fair.
Yeah, so want to take a vote on that. So those who are okay with taking out the waiting 3 months between consecutive terms. So people can serve consecutive terms, just like on our other boards and commissions, which was a great point, Becky, that happens a lot.
Question, do we have term limits? I can't remember. I thought we had put in some sort of term limits. I don't know if that was my question.
So the term limits were just the consecutive terms, like if you're selected as the chair, you can only be chair for 1 year, and then you have to wait a year before you can run for chair again. Same with being on the board. You can be on the board for your 4 years, and then you have to wait 4 years before you can be on the board.
So that applies to this.
Right, and so, yeah, so that was the kind of, I don't know if there's really term limits, because you can keep reapplying.
So that doesn't make sense then. So board member, we're saying here, board member can serve a consecutive term.
If no one else, so what it says is at the discretion, so board members cannot serve a consecutive term unless that position is empty for 3 months, then the council can decide, okay, we can let them serve another term if they want, because there's no one to fill it. I think
as opposed to they can do consecutive terms, but we still have to okay it.
And somebody could, I mean,
Someone else
we
could
will be
apply.
announcing ahead of time, these positions
Yes.
are open.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So it doesn't preclude that we might get some more applicants.
Yes. Right. We might do
We just
that.
don't have that 3 months of dead time.
Right.
Yes, that's what I'm concerned
Okay.
with, is half my board members will be gone for 3 months.
Yeah, we've even had an auditor for 12 years. Probably should mix that.
All right, so let's take a straw poll on that one. Does everyone understand that one? So let's take a straw poll if we're okay taking away the 3-month waiting period. All right, the fourth one,
Okay.
clarification.
Okay, so this one we had, some concern with, because I think in the, code, it just says a neighborhood chair cannot use their title for any type of political or commercial activity, which I think, which was so broad that we had neighborhood chairs saying, hey, we have a new business in our neighborhood, we want to go to the ribbon cutting, but I can't, because that's a commercial business, and I can't say, hey, as the neighborhood chair, let's support this new business, because someone said, no, that's commercial activity, we can't say it. And also with the political activity, we had an event where they invited all the people running for the council to attend their event. And then we had someone say, well, it says in the code, you can't have any political activity. You can't call this a neighborhood District 1 event or whatever district or what. And then, and so they had to change it. They were so afraid of going against the policy that it became very confusing. And I don't know if we want to keep it in, or in the past, and correct me if I'm wrong, Councilor Bogdan, in the past, the neighborhoods have had like councilors come and have a debate or meet the councilor night or something like that. And now we feel like we can't on that. Oh, yes.
I'd like to understand maybe what the proposed clarification is, because this is the first I've heard about there being confusion about this, and I think it's actually really simple. The only thing that it means is you can't stand up and say, I endorse so-and-so as candidate for state representative as the neighborhood chair.
Right.
And that's how
That's
we
the only thing
all,
it means.
that's how we all understood it, but I had pushback from citizens when we invited all the people running for council to a neighborhood event. Because they read that and they said, well, you're the neighborhood chair, and this is a political event. You're saying it's a neighborhood event, therefore you can't have it. And so it wasn't that we were, you know, we were reading it, I think the way it was supposed to be, it was just the public, so maybe it's just informing the public of that, but. Councilor Barton.
I have no problem with them having the debates and things like that, but I think what we need to do is give them more training, like what Brian said, is you cannot endorse anything with your title.
Right.
You can go ahead and do your debates as long as you invite everybody in the room, or everybody that's filed for that office, or you know what I mean. We don't restrict anybody, we have everybody, you have the same amount of time for each candidate to speak. And I think as long as we did those trainings, and make it really clear, I think we'd be okay.
So that was
Am I wrong,
probably-
Brian?
Let's
Yeah,
just
no,
probably a non-issue.
I agree. If we're doing a code cleanup anyway, I suppose, looking at it, I suppose we could remove the word communication and replace it with endorsement.
I think that's what they were saying.
That's good.
Because they had put up a sign and they said therefore that's communication. And they had to change those signs.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think if they had just asked us, why,
Endorsement does
But
make it more
sometimes the
clear.
answer isn't the one you want, so you ask someone else.
So you just can't endorse someone using the title?
Right. Okay, that makes more sense. So do we want to change that to just changing the word communication to endorsement?
Yeah.
Code?
Sounds good. Do you wanna take a straw poll on that one? So we won't change anything else except changing the word communication to endorsement. Or Brian's.
Can we have somebody read off what it says, just so.
So it says, no neighborhood district executive board may use the title of neighborhood district executive board member for any communication, or the change would be to endorsement involving political and or commercial activities.
That does it.
That's good.
That's it.
All right, raise your hand if you're okay with that change. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, here's the important ones, the money ones. So the matching grant funds, I looked back in the records, it's been $5,000 since 1994. That's as far back as I could go.
Sorry, I'm laughing out loud.
So there's not a lot that they can purchase with $5,000. It's like
They can buy
we're
one-
doing half
one
of
foot of
our
curb.
bench, or it's hard. And so we're proposing that up to 7,500. It kind of matches the way we raised how much the service hours are worth. So you're still doing 500 hours of service. In order to get, does that make sense, the 7,500, because now you're getting $15 an hour.
What about raising it to 10? I mean, where's this coming from? This money?
Well, that's why it says.
This is our council office
oh,
budget?
Yeah, this would be increasing council office.
I mean, does that break our bank if we?
On top of feeding them
Well, it was
dinner?
not part of this fiscal year budget, so it could be planned on moving forward into FY '25, or you could generously appropriate 25,000
I mean,
make that up.
I don't think even if we went up to 25,000, that would be much better than 10, in my mind. I mean, this is really valuable. I think what they come up with and what they want to do is really super valuable. So we can be as generous as we can. I just don't know I don't have a sense of what's reasonable within our own budget. 3,500 sounds like not enough to me.
I would agree with George, because even $5,000, we were trying to do picnic benches, that would buy us a picnic bench and a pad, that was about it, right? And it's really hard to improve anything with 5,000 anymore. But my thought would be, we're gonna use that $12,000 for dinners this year and see how that works. What if we just took that $12,000 out of this next year and just started putting that towards the matching grant? So if we could find money for 10,000 and then have that extra 12,000 on top of it, or hybrid of both, something like that.
Was that, Justin, was that 12,000, was that an ongoing thing, or was that just a one-time? One time.
We could factor it in going forward. Part of our
It's a matter of,
At the end of the day, the council controls the appropriation process, so.
Well, again, without knowing what the budget is, your points were taken. No wonder people don't come to the meetings to decide how to spend $5,000. It isn't significant. Let's just say it was the smartest thing we ever did, and it was 100,000. Let's say a neighborhood could decide on, maybe not every neighborhood, but the best 3 neighborhoods, or it was selected. Now that would get exciting. That would get people to come with ideas, not who gets a bench.
right.
So it's not surprising that people aren't.
George?
Again, I don't know what the budget implications are, but maybe that's something that we do take a look at.
Did you put that as one of your council budget priorities
I
for
did
our
not,
second meeting?
It's on the list, no worries.
Okay.
I didn't think of it.
Yeah, I think we originally came up with the 7,500, so in case there was no budget money, we know there's
Makes
always
sense.
a
Makes
few
sense.
districts who don't apply, mostly because they don't see the value in such a small project. And so then that would take the money from those other districts, and that's why we came up with that low number.
And one district did use it last year, right?
We had two didn't use it last year.
So right there, that's 10,000, but we're.
That's meals for this year.
That was our using part.
So is that something we wanna come back to once we know kind of some numbers, or do we wanna do a vote on that one?
It sounds like there's interest in,
10,000?
and it's being as generous as is within reason. I don't know what that looks like exactly, although
So the
100,000
question
could be
is,
very exciting.
should we go ahead and do the 75 or 10 for this year, thinking we could do that within our current budget, but then at our budget priority meeting, look at significantly
Expansive.
changing
Yeah.
that?
There you go.
I like that.
So do this little change now so that we can tell them, look, it's a little bit more, it matches the money, and we're looking at really empowering you people.
I like that.
Right, let's
So,
vote on that.
Just to clarify, the budget would need to come from somewhere, because it wasn't part of the FY 25 budget, so
Well, you
there,
put it in our.
there would
so
need
you
to
probably
be a
put it in the
separate
general fund.
appropriation for this year, and then ongoing, if the decision was to do that, it would be part of our presentation for FY 25. Okay.
Yeah, this year's already set.
Good.
We're halfway through it.
So that was the appropriation for 7,500 this year, and then see how much we can do, okay.
Should we take a quick straw poll, just make sure that everyone okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay, and then we'll discuss in our council priorities.
The next one is one that I'm just confused on. I don't really understand the fee waivers. I've had some people tell me, that it should just be taken out of the code and that they shouldn't be allowed to have fee waivers. We did have one situation where they wanted to do a fee waiver, and it's the chair who decides whether that fee waiver is approved or not, and the chair had said no. And so the board member who wanted the fee waiver was like, well, there's no recourse. Like if there's a majority of the other board members, they can overturn the chair, or, I mean, kind of my answer was, you're just gonna have to wait until there's a different chair.
I think, yeah, I would really like to see this get removed, because I think it created an unnecessary tension that probably could have gone directly to the council or to staff as an issue, rather than somebody who's on the board who happens to be in a leadership position suddenly has a position of authority to deny, in this case, an entire neighborhood that was making an appeal to the city. And it just seemed arbitrary that we had put that person in that position to have authority over another neighborhood. That has nothing to do with the legitimacy of both people's opinions on that issue. I just didn't think it was appropriate that a board member had the authority over another neighborhood to say one way or the other, something that really should have been deliberated by staff or council.
I bring this up all the time. I had to use that to do the park. So I used to do the park. So it
Say
is,
it again, Becky.
that's what I used to do the park.
What used what? The
That
fee waiver?
fee waiver.
Yeah.
When I did the park.
And you were the chair at the time?
I was the chair at the time. You guys were the ones that told staff to do it, and staff said, no, Becky, you do it. So I brought that park change to OSPR all the way through the process, all the way in front of you guys.
Yeah.
Remember that? So I'm really strong, it needs to be kept in. Now, whether we need to, revisit, if it's 4 members of the council that would trigger that, or whatever, Because that's what happened in my case, right? And then development services staff was like, no, we don't have time for this. This is a council thing. Becky, this is your neighborhood. You do this. And that's what I did.
Is it just a time thing? Because it seemed like the park should have gone through, I don't know, parks or development services like that. I don't know. I don't quite understand why it had to go through a neighborhood chair.
Yeah, I think we're, you might be misunderstanding it. I'm in favor of having the fee waiver. Is that what you're?
Yes, I am.
I'm in favor of having the fee waiver. What I'm not in favor of is that the neighborhood district chair is the person who makes the decision. Because that's what it currently is written as. That's what this is asking. It's not to get rid of the idea of the fee waiver. It's to say when an application for a fee waiver comes, it should be adjudicated either, I'm saying it shouldn't be by the neighborhood chair or the board chair.
Right,
Well,
because in this
Because that's
case,
too arbitrary. And you would have had, instead of coming to us, you would have had to go to
Well, I never came to you.
one other person.
Development services came to me.
Yeah.
And said, you're the one that needs to do this. And this is how.
Okay, yeah. But what I'm saying is that process, that's what I like, is that process. But the way it's set up right now, you would have had to go to somebody who was your district chair to decide whether or not you should be given that fee waiver. And that's arbitrary.
Well, even in the old program, it was the neighborhood chair who decided, right?
right, but in this case, a neighborhood wanted it, but the chair of the little board, who was not in that neighborhood, said, no, you don't get the fee waiver.
And there was no other recourse.
Yeah.
Also, I think it's relevant that the fee waiver they wanted was for an ADU fee waiver. I don't think anyone should be getting an ADU fee waiver. It takes a lot of staff time and it's a moneymaker, and I don't think we should be waiving fees on that. I think that people should pay the fee on that because it takes so much. We should be subsidizing it, right? Like I think something like a park for a neighborhood is a bigger thing that helps everybody.
You know, my point is, it doesn't matter what the issue is. I don't think someone who is the neighborhood chair should have the authority. That's an elected, that's either, staff
Right,
or
right.
council. It's not,
We just need to figure out.
because that created huge tensions
Yep.
and resentment about who was the neighborhood chair and who wasn't.
So we need like a different way to do the fee waivers and to trigger it. I do think ADU should be taken out of an option.
And they're not in.
Well, they aren't. in.
They're not in. So let me clarify a couple things.
So they couldn't have done it anyway.
The only thing that you can apply for a fee waiver for under this section is a text amendment or a map amendment. So a zone map amendment or a text amendment to Title 14 and 15. And really the issue here is this is just now, and to George's point, I guess, to Councilor Hanley's point, I would also say, just by way of clarification, the executive board chair is not approving or rejecting the fee waiver, but the way it's written, they kind of have a veto power. I mean, it has to come to development services for them to actually grant the fee waiver. But the way it's written, the executive board chair can choose not to submit it. And therefore development services never even sees it. And it's really kind of just something that arose out of the change in the program. We pretty much copied the language out of the old program. And it's because the neighborhoods are now grouped into districts. It used to be individual neighborhood chairs that could submit. Now it's the executive board chair that can submit. And as Councilor Whipple pointed out, in this particular case, the executive board chair wasn't in the neighborhood that wanted to submit it, and therefore was able to essentially veto even the submission. So that's something that we can change, I think, without too many problems. We just need to think about what the best way to change it is.
So kind of broader context, this is the only place in code that mentions fee waivers. So actually fee waivers don't come before the council. They're all done administratively. I don't want to open this can of worms, but maybe it's just a seed. If that is something that you want changed, that's a different discussion.
I'm not advocating that necessarily. I wasn't very clear. I mean, I think I would just, all I'm saying is I think we should remove the obstacle and have it be directly through normal process of staff approving.
Yeah, it seems
disapproving
to me in
requests.
the example that Counselor Bogdan gave, it seems odd for a city facility like a park to request a fee waiver of a neighborhood chair. It's for the city. This is not a private entity or enterprise asking for a fee waiver. I don't know if that perspective helps or changes anything, but I don't know why we would want or need to request a fee waiver for fees for something that, in this case, it's a neighborhood district would be doing for the benefit of the public. In the park example. So, I don't know, maybe that's just some clarification with staff. But.
The other thing I'd just clarify is the way this is written, even, there's only 3, it says an executive board chair may only submit a fee waiver request if authorized by the council or authorized by city administration, or a duly noticed meeting of the residents is held in which a majority of the residents present a vote in support of the proposed amendment. And really, the thing I think that we're kind of circling around is the way it's drafted right now, you could have a situation where that third thing is happening, and again, the board chair is just executing a pocket veto and just keeping the votes being held. Residents are saying, please send this to the city, and the board chair is just refusing to send it on. So I think
just remove that.
I think we can just figure that out. Yeah.
So is this something that we should have you and staff work on a little bit and come back to us?
Yeah.
Do we need to do a struggle on that, or are we good?
Any objections to us doing that? Nope. Sounds good.
So this next one, is one that I think is important. So usually in the old program, you would only have a neighborhood meeting if a developer was wanting to build something in your community, and the developer was in charge of alerting the community. And you would have a lot of people at these meetings because they want to know what's happening in their neighborhood. So we took out the developers notifying the public of neighborhood district meetings. And so we have developers come, there's 10 people there, maybe 1 is from that neighborhood. And the developers are kind of, well, one meeting in specifically, the neighborhood chair said, you gotta make sure that your neighbors know that you're doing this to make sure they're on board. And he said, I thought that's what this meeting was. And he's like, yeah, but only 1 person from your neighborhood was here. And it's consistently like that unless the board members are earnestly getting people to come, which I've only had happen at 1 meeting where we had a bunch come. Normally it's the same 10 people that come to the meeting. They're hearing this, the developer is doing this presentation to people that aren't even in the neighborhood. And it's just been hard to get the feedback we need because we're no longer notifying those people. But I know that there's been problems in the past with the notification process, so they just took it out. So I don't know if there's a better way of, maybe I'm just not advertising it well, or if we need to. And I tell people, there's the big sign out at the property, but those usually come out later when it's closer to the planning commission. That's just where the small numbers really hurt me with this program, because it doesn't help the developer because they're not getting the feedback from the people they need, and it's not helping the community because they don't even know this meeting is happening.
I have a question about that. So I think we need to fix this somehow, but I don't know what the right way to do it is. Do we not have, because if you can do a targeted either mailing or an email to the neighborhood, the most immediate neighborhood of the proposal, that's how it normally would go, right? Or under the old system.
Under the old system, the developer was supposed to send out,
It was their obligation to
Right.
put notices on everyone's door.
Yes.
But what was the boundary?
it was only like 1,000 feet, which is a problem on the west side, right? Because 1,000 feet could mean 3 houses. But it was also to the chair's discretion of whether they wanted the full neighborhood notified or not. So there wasn't anything in between. It was either a full neighborhood or within that 1,000 feet.
No, I'm not finding the code section I was thinking of off the top of my head, but I thought development services was still, had basically just taken over the
They do it for planning commission, so that the neighbors, the surrounding neighbors will get a postcard before the item goes to planning commission. But before, it used to be that the developer noticed the neighbors before it went to a neighborhood meeting.
I think the problem was that, if I'm remembering the context of our discussion on this, is that developers would go through all this effort, and this is sort of Bill Pepperoni's feedback, right? They'd go through all this effort to come to an agreement with the neighborhood, and then they would start going through the process, and it would turn out that the planning commission and the council had different opinions than what the neighborhood felt, and they were not clear as to, am I supposed to get this neighborhood chair's approval before I go forward? But then it turns out this neighborhood chair's approval or disapproval isn't actually binding in any way. So
But
why am
we still-
I dragging this
Right,
process
but
out?
we still have them come to the meetings. So if it's a zone change or a general plan amendment, the developers still go to the neighborhood meeting. So they're still talking to the neighborhood, it's just the difference is none of the neighbors know this meeting is happening.
So here's my take on this, right? Neighborhood chairs have 0 power, right? 0 power. What usually happens is staff looks at this proposal through the lens of a computer. Your people that are gonna come to these meetings, they're the people on the ground. They're the people who go to the wards. They know the makeup of the wards. They're the ones that have their kids in these schools. They know the makeup of the schools. They know the problems, the history of the land. They know everything. And so when they come to these neighborhood meetings, it's not just to come and say, hey, this is what we propose. It's to also get that institutional knowledge of, this is what's wrong with the property. Hey, you know, this is what kinds of homes that we need to build up this school, to build up this ward. These are the kinds of things that we see are the issues, so that those things can be passed on to planning commission and city council. That's a perspective that you're not gonna get unless you invite these people to come out and look at these problems. You're not saying, hey, district chair, you have to enter into this contract with developer. That's not appropriate, right? And that's again through training. To say, hey, you know, you don't enter into a development agreement on this level. This is.
Yeah, I think that was, as I recall, that's what Bill Pepperoni was, like some chairs would communicate to the developer in such a way that the developer felt like they did have power or did have authority when they didn't. And so it was dragging out the process, because then they would have to turn right around and the recommending body, the commission or the city council, suddenly saying something very different, and they've wasted a year and a half or something.
But again, the onus would be on the council, because we are supposed to be obligated to hear these problems. Like where we use the Osprey development in my neighborhood. They had all these different issues. They were supposed to build a whole wall to keep the water from coming into the adjoining neighborhood's backyards. None of that was done. None of that was put into a development agreement. And so when we built that, we had all those issues that we had to turn around and now lobby the city to try to get remedies for. So I see it as a good thing, but I also see it as you need to train into what the rules are.
Sure. Councilor Hogan, did you want to make your comment first?
No, go ahead.
Well, I was just to say, you know, in some ways, I guess I would, some of you will remember that there was a, what was it called? The Development Process Review Committee, or some of it.
DAPR,
yeah, that's right, DAPR, or the Sewell Commission, as some of us referred to that. This was, we spent a lot of time, there was a council committee that spent months discussing the development process. I know that this was one of the issues that was discussed extensively there, with a whole bunch of different issues about it. My suggestion, for what it's worth, in some ways, what's on the screen in front of you is a suggested solution. I think what Rachel has actually better described is the problem rather than the solution. I would say, I don't think you should choose a solution without hearing from development services first. So I would say, my suggestion on this particular item would be, let's ask staff to go back to development services, tell them what the problem is, and come back to you with a proposed solution, rather than just the solution that came back from the survey.
Yeah, because as I see it, the problem is none of the residents know what's happening and they're not there to give their feedback. And sometimes the feedback is as simple as, don't put the front door on this side because that street always floods, put it on this side. It's valuable feedback like that because they're living on the street, and we do train them very well. They're doing much better than they have been. They know that when a developer comes, this is informational only. You are here to listen to the developer, and the developer is here to listen to you. You're not supposed to already have your opinion formed on this. You're supposed to give your opinion to the planning commission and the city council. You are here to listen and just to be informed about what's going on in your neighborhood. And it's hard when 3 people show up and they're from completely different part of the district.
So just to clarify, we're only discussing whether or not they should notify.
Yes.
So no other change, we're not discussing the changes.
No, it would still only be the zone changes, general plan amendments, and that comes from development services, that those are the only ones they want to go to neighborhood meetings. That came from them. This is purely a notification because we're not getting the residents.
But it is more complicated than that, because then if you decide, yes, let's do this, you've got to decide, what does the notification have to consist of? When does it have to be done? Who does it have to be done by? Who does it have to go to? What are the consequences if it doesn't get done?
And will there
and what are the steps after it gets done, or if it doesn't get done? And those were the things that were discussed by the DAPR committee that I think merit. I get the problem. I think the problem needs a solution, but I think you need development services feedback on the solution.
Because it could be we're having problems with developers. I send a notification out like I used to do when I was planning secretary. Justin says no.
I would make a motion or a recommendation that we just bring this back with development services recommendations.
Yeah, because I know the developers hate it. I know they hate getting the list of addresses. I know they hate mailing or putting notices on doors. I know the developers, they hate it. I've spoken to many developers when I was planning secretary and they hated it. So I get that, but I also think it's important to have people there.
Can I make a recommendation that at least for the west side, that they look at more than 1,000 feet?
I'd only include 2 or 3 cows.
Exactly. That was the problem we always had.
I'll just say, we're gonna come back with it, so I second. Did somebody second it?
Yeah. Great, second.
Okay. I'm supportive of reinstituting some sort of notification requirements, but let's hear what development services say, because I know one thing we were trying to do as part of this neighborhood program change was make sure that this neighborhood program wasn't slowing down developments.
Right.
Because what would happen is you could have, I'm not saying this happened a lot, but we had heard the stories that a neighborhood chair was opposed to a development and they'd say, yep, I'll let you know when the next meeting is, and they wouldn't schedule it for 3 or 4 months. And then, oh, sorry, we're gonna have to reschedule, and they used it as a weapon. They weaponized it basically to push out developments. I'm just saying, we heard the stories, Becky. And so, with one change we made with the neighborhood program, can you guys tell I'm proud of the change we made? I do think there's a lot of improvements, but one thing we made was that developments, though they still had to come to a neighborhood meeting, it was on the next neighborhood meeting, and we were scheduling those. So that couldn't happen But I like the idea of reinstituting some sort of notification.
And it could be as simple as just getting a big sign that we put out at the property that says neighborhood meeting or like that. It could just be that, so the people who drive by or whatever would see the sign and know that there's a neighborhood meeting. It could be something simple like that.
We should put it on that light up billboard that we keep getting complaints about.
Genius.
I think the point I was trying to make with that comment is I don't want to slow down development, especially right now,
Yeah.
given that there's such a housing crunch, like let's try to move these along.
And we do, like when we first started the program, we let the chair, like the boards, decide any development to go to a neighborhood meeting, and development services, and that's slowing it down. So we stopped that. It's now only zone changes and general plan amendments that go to a neighborhood meeting, and we do put it on the very next meeting. And sometimes they were like, I'm already scheduled to go to planning commission before your scheduled neighborhood meeting. And so in that case, we said, that's fine. And we just sent a notice out to the residents who subscribe to our newsletters saying, hey, this is not gonna go to a neighborhood meeting, but please attend planning commission, please attend city council. And we didn't get any pushback from residents.
George made a motion and Craig seconded it, so let's vote on that as far as coming back to this item with development services input. Everyone who's okay with that, raise your hands. Okay, so that's unanimous.
Okay, and so this next one.
Do we have to do an actual vote?
No, that's fine. You don't need to do roll calls. On ordinances and resolutions, you need to, it's not required in these kind of things.
One quick note on that. So this has been a topic that's been brought up at the state about not having cities require this in their code about doing these meetings or as a requirement for developers. So know the state is watching.
So
There's already here.
If we put it back in.
Yes.
So, wait, what was that again, Justin? So is that something we're not supposed to have in the code?
It was just discussed in CHA, so the Commission on Housing Affordability. I don't think it'll be in a bill this year, but I'm just letting you know that in the CHA, there's a subgroup that's discussing zoning and how planning applications move through cities. And one of the things they brought up is cities requiring additional meetings to planning commissions and city councils as a barrier, and they want to get rid of it.
Oh, okay.
So I think we're fine if we don't make it a requirement, and I'm not saying it's going to be a state code change this year, but it has been brought up, and they don't name cities in those meetings, but yeah.
Honestly, make my life fun. Can you bring the next? Okay, and so the last two, these were requested, so the Pleasant View neighborhood, their representative has requested that they be moved from District 4, which is this red district, up to District 1, which is the green district. They felt like they had more in common with District 1, and that's more in line with the council district. So that was just a request from them.
Is there a reason we initially went this route though? Was there any rationale?
I say what the people want, it's fine.
Yeah, and then the university, for some reason, everyone keeps fighting for the university neighborhood. I don't think this even came from university, but they're like, whatever you want to do. But District 5 would really like university, so the students are kind of all together in one district. So it would make District 4 smaller, but it would still be the second most populous district, even though.
Are both of those currently in 4?
Yes, these are both currently in 4, so even with them both being gone, 4 is still the second most populated by people and households. It would add a little bit of numbers to 1, it would add a lot of numbers to District 5. But it would be more cohesive with all the students being together. So
I think people should be where they want to be if they.
And both, and the university neighborhood representative is okay with that.
Should we take a vote on that then? If we're okay with moving both Pleasant View and University to the districts that they have requested? Raise
So
of hands.
can, the university requested this or?
No,
That one came from District 2 and District 5 were both fighting for the university neighborhood. District 5 kind of won, and the university representative said,
Didn't
sounds
matter.
great to me, so.
It just seems odd to, I don't know, maybe.
They just feel like both
They're not-
neighborhoods have come to me, both neighborhood representatives have come to me saying they don't feel like they fit the personality of District 4.
Take that personally.
I take it personally too. But both of them just felt like, because university college students with a very established neighborhood. And so they just kind of felt like the concerns of District 4 were not their concerns. And they feel like their concerns more align with District 5, with the Joaquin neighborhood right there. They both of them came to me later, after District 2 and District 5 were fighting for university. The representative for the university neighborhood came to me and said, they're right, because we really don't have anything in common with District 4.
I think we make them fill out a paper of secession.
Taking this personally.
I will not let them go.
Let them go, Travis, let them go.
Well, this is all the more reason to have that cap for the number of
Right.
representatives in District 5, certainly, because it's got a lot of neighborhoods.
Yeah, District 5 has a lot of neighborhoods. Keep in mind, we don't have any representatives for East Bay. And Temp is the world's smallest neighborhood, but they have super good representation in Temp. They're very proud of their neighborhood. But yeah, it would make District 5 a lot bigger as far as population, but I don't
yeah,
think
but-
that's students coming.
I mean, to be honest, you're talking the representatives from the university, and maybe a handful of other people. It's not.
Right.
I don't say that's a good thing. I'm just saying that's the reality.
Okay, the inauguration's in 9 minutes. Oh, then get the Zoom started. Are you guys good for a straw poll on accepting moving Pleasant View and University where they want to go? If you're accepting of that, raise your hand.
And is that something you would want to look into right away, or like January?
No, you do it. If they want to do it now.
No reason to
All right,
Hey, last chance, you guys can still back out if you want, but
all right. If there's no objection, we will now
we got
adjourn
7 minutes.
the Provo Municipal Council work meeting by unanimous consent.
Nice work, Rich.
Recording stopped.